Ryan, it's not the end of the world,
So
man.
what's
It's
this part do?
It's supposed to do that.
Yeah,
Is this normal?
I mean, it's not bad.
Look, it says right here, the green liquid is supposed to come out of there.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
No.
Yeah, yours.
Well, besides mine.
I mean, no.
Is it supposed to burn?
Yes.
Bud, if you went to Tokyo, they'd summon Godzilla.
I mean, my mom said it tasted alright.
I mean, your mother is very special.
Your mom's a cum dumpster.
She's compost.
Compost bin.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's right, buddy. Just drink your massive penis worries away.
Yeah, it's okay.
It'll be okay, man. Man, I can even smell it from here.
My penis?
Yeah.
You might want to put something on it.
Do you clean it?
I rub Axe on it.
Do you use
Axe deodorant?
Do you use like a plunger to clean it?
Well, unless your butt's a plunger.
I mean, kind of.
Guys, this is recording.
Oh, fuck,
Position. No, Mike, not that position.
Oh,
that other one.
Michael, please.
Sorry, man. Just your massive cock just makes me do things.
Me and Melanie compared, and I swear hers had me beat by like an inch or so. Here, you should probably.
What's the worst part about it is like cockfighting is illegal now, so it's just.
Fuck.
But it does still get you up.
Well, Michael Vick got away with letting dogs fight for a while, so I'm.
True.
What's the big deal with like a little cockfight?
Yeah, I mean.
All right, here you go, Alice Cooper.
Nothing wrong with telling another man that he's got a nice cock.
It's just a compliment, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
whenever
I'm at the urinal, I make sure to compliment another gentleman's member.
Another genital
just
genitalia.
Etiquette.
Another genitals gentleman.
My genitals.
Gentleman genitalia. Gentleman genitalia. That's a
man.
tongue twister.
Genitals gentleman.
Genitals gentleman.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Check out the man on that cock.
If I ever have to hit on a man ever again, that's what I'm going to say.
If you ever have to what?
If I ever have to hit on a man.
Oh, I thought you said handle a man.
Yeah.
That's that too, I guess. That's a nice man on that cock. See if that works at the bar next time you're out.
Oh, I think it
ladies. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, it doesn't take much for a woman to come hit on a man. She could come up, her face could be covered in macaroni and cheese, and she could have like laryngitis, and a dude's still gonna be like, "Hey, yeah, she's looking into me, yeah.
Hey, you want to fuck,
Adrian?"
Sure, yeah.
Listen,
why not?
If I could do it, anybody can do it.
It does not take a lot to appease a man.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest here. I mean, if a woman comes up wants to touch a man, he's gonna be dropping them trousers. He's gonna be fucking just touch it right now.
Right appeased.
Yeah, right appeased. A penist. All right, everybody. Levity aside, today we are talking about a serious topic. I kind of lament that we weren't able to talk about it sooner. I can't stop laughing because she's looking at me funny.
She's thinking like, man. What a man on that cock.
I was really just thinking about, wow, your standards.
What about my standards?
Because you said it wouldn't take a lot.
Well, I'm talking about for most men in general.
Oh, Ryan can take a lot.
Oh, he's
Trust me.
talking from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ass just smells like a nice summer breeze blew over a picnic of deviled eggs.
Speaking of compost bins.
Ryan!
Hey, it's Ryan. Lid's open 24/7.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a contentious topic to discuss because when we went over the topic that being MAID, which means, for those of you who don't know, is medical assistance in death, we had posted it in our group chat, which kind of spurred this very contentious and acrimonious argument, and Melanie and my girlfriend got mad at me, and everybody was mad at me because
I didn't get mad at you.
You guys were a little perturbed.
I was surprised that was your response.
Yeah, so after that, we kind of felt like it warranted further discussion because it's kind of a hot topic in Canada right now, and in a lot of the other countries in the world who do currently have legislation supporting MAID are kind of looking at Canada to see how they deal with approaching this topic, especially one that's kind of deals with quite sensitive subject matter. So for starters, just a little bit of a preamble. Just bear with me here for a moment. So for those of you who don't know, MAID means medical assistance in death. It's been legalized in Canada since 2016, but predominantly for the terminally ill. But that was then there was then some changes to that law in 2021 where they changed it so people who are just suffering from a lifelong illness of some sort could sign up for MAID. So that could include things like ALS or Parkinson's. Now, just to get out of the way, I do agree with that. So you can cut the evil little fucking glare you're flipping at me right
I'm
now.
not glaring at you.
Then take your
That's
hat
just
off.
how I look.
You look like you sell vape outside of a Hot Topic.
I do. I made a lot of money off of those children.
Yeah, I'm sure MAID's going to as well.
Yeah, good. Good for them.
So when it comes down to medical assistance in death, there's two options you can choose. You can do it via the assistance of a physician, or you can administer the drugs yourself. What actually kind of surprised me is I kind of was under the impression maybe most people would opt to do it themselves, ingest the medicine themselves. But no, I guess the overwhelming majority of people opt to have the doctor do it.
Well, because I think there's two reasons for that, and that would be you trust the doctor to be able to do it right. And then also you're worried that you can't bring yourself to do it. Just like how, I mean, this is a weird comparison, but like if you're going to kill yourself, a lot of people back out of it because they're too scared to do it.
It's like I just kind of feel like once people have come to that decision that they might be more comfortable doing it themselves. But I don't know. I was kind of back and forth on that when I was internally debating myself because I do understand why some people would want the doctor to do it, but at the same time, I feel like if people kind of made the decision to, I guess, end their life, that they would kind of maybe opt to do it themselves. Maybe I don't really know if it's done in the hospital. That's one thing that I couldn't figure out. I'm going to imagine that it's probably either or. You can have it done in a hospital or you can have it done at home. I mean,
Could also be like a philosophical or religious kind of issue or conundrum that they'd have as well, because if you administer it yourself, you're technically committing suicide.
Yeah,
but if
that's
you
true.
have someone else do it for you,
Then
it's
it's
like
just
a
murder.
loophole, I guess.
Then it's just murder.
Yeah, somebody else is killing you.
yeah.
So maybe it's like, oh, I can still get into heaven or something like that.
Yeah, see, I kind of figured there'd be some religious ramifications that would be very difficult to navigate around because, like, some people can't even accept blood transfusions depending on their religion, and there's a lot of things.
Mormons.
Yeah, Mormons. See, we're on the same page there. The amount of people that, I guess this is going to warrant a bit of a tangent, but that when you let your child die because you feel like God isn't coming down and bestowing his holistic fucking all healing glory upon your son. It's like, if there's a God, he's kind of has a full itinerary of things to attend to. You don't just say he's not going to give a shit about fucking little Timmy down here dying of leukemia, okay?
I have been put onto Mormon TikTok where a guy goes to BYU, a predominantly, if not exclusively Mormon university, and asks them like a question of like, would you rather do this or this? And a lot of them is like, would you rather get $50 million or would you rather talk to the guy who invented Mormonism and stuff like that? Or like, would you rather like drink like vodka or kill a puppy? And a lot of them would be like, yeah, I'll kill the puppy. 'Cause I don't want to drink. I don't want to consume alcohol.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Whoever
Hold
is running
on.
TikTok, please do something about Mormon TikTok.
Oh boy, there's also like, they'll ask people like their opinions on soaking, which Ryan recently learned
Jesus
what that
Christ,
is.
I completely forgot. For those,
So hold on. I actually, for those who don't know,
That's what I was gonna
soaking
say.
is a Mormon loophole, and some believe in it and some don't. And what it is if you stick your penis in the girl but don't move, you can get around it. But here's where it gets interesting. You have another person shake the bed.
But whoa.
And so
What about that inaugural thrust? Doesn't that count?
When they talk about doing this, like on TikTok, like when they ask people your thoughts on soaking, a lot of the girls will be like, yeah, but I've been the person who has to shake the bed. And that's totally normal to them.
What?
They don't see any problem with shaking the bed, so essentially two people can fuck. That's awkward.
Do they at least...
Anyway, a lot of people in the comments say that the guy who invented Mormonism, because so many people say, like, I would love to have 5 minutes with this guy to talk to him instead of, like, $50 million. And a lot of people are like, the dude who invented Mormonism was schizophrenic and, like, mentally, like, wild. Like, you basically follow a religion about a guy who made it all up because he had an episode.
You know what I would take having a conversation with him just to figure out. I just want to sit in the room where they had the conversation to figure out soaking was okay.
They're probably playing with Barbie and Ken doll.
Well, a lot of people,
you see,
it's pretty divided on whether they think it's okay or not. I think it just depends on if you're horny enough. You'll be like, yeah, I can get away with this. Anyway, I'll show you the TikToks after.
Oh my god! I feel like if there's any Mormon who would be willing to come on the show who's partaken in soaking,
and let us just control them.
Like, to me, that just sounds like cock marinating. But
you could probably just find a Reddit thread about it.
I want to speak. I want to have a one-on-one conversation with someone who has soaked and has, or the person who was facilitating the bed shaking, because to me that's fucking. That's how people with disabilities fuck.
But somebody else is doing it, and therefore they think it's okay.
Somebody else is doing it? What? Okay, so that in that case, Jigsaw's innocent because he wasn't the one killing people. It was his traps.
We're gonna take a trip to Mormon TikTok after this.
Okay, so we digressed there quite a bit, but I feel like that was a conversation that needed to happen right now.
I'm just imagining like 4 people just like ramming this guy's dick into someone.
Oh!
Yeah, hey! And we've got penetration.
It's like a sports announcer.
I was thinking more like a room, like, you know how in NASA they've got the room full of people at the computers when they do, like, launches? I'm thinking that, but it's like, and we have penetration.
And we have touchdown.
Houston, we have a problem.
We're spewing fuel.
I made inky.
Oh, no.
All right, so yeah, we digressed there quite a bit,
but
that's something I'd never heard of before. I had no idea it was a Mormon-sided TikTok, and if you guys didn't, well, the more you know, I guess. So, referring back to MAID, there's currently 15 countries that offer MAID, but some with more caveats than others. For example, 8 of these countries remove the prerequisite of terminal illness to receive MAID. So the other ones, it was only, if you were within a certain amount of months of dying. So the ones that removed the dying part, like you're actively dying part, those would be Belgium, Austria, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, Colombia, and now, of course, Canada, which Canada is now kind of at the forefront of this medical assistance in dying movement. So with that being said, let's go over the eligibility. So to be eligible, you must, this is taken right off the Government of Canada website, and this is the current legislation anyway, be eligible for health services funded by a province or territory or the federal government. So that's pretty self-explanatory. You may also be eligible if you meet your province or territory's minimum period of residence or waiting period. See, I kind of feel like it's saying that if you've lived in in a province for a little bit that you'd become eligible? I'm not.
Yeah, so when you move to a different province, there is a period of time where you're still covered by your previous province. So it's like 3
Okay.
months.
I've never
So,
moved
yeah.
yeah.
out of.
So it's 3 months that you're still covered by your previous province. That you have time to like get your health card and stuff like that. So I assume that's what they're talking about is when you first move somewhere, you probably have to wait.
Okay, that makes sense. I've never moved out of Nova Scotia.
Basically, like a waiting period to become a resident. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So, okay, that makes sense. You have to be at least 18 years old and mentally competent. That's a term we're going to refer back to as we progress through this. This, and they put on a separate bullet point, this means being capable of making healthcare decisions for yourself. That's another important point we're going to refer back to. Have grievous or irremediable medical condition. So that would be like ALS, Parkinson's, things that don't have a cure and you've been suffering for a long time with. Make a voluntary request for medical assistance in dying. So that means, of course, you yourself have to make the request. Nobody else can make the request for you. The request cannot be the result of outside pressure or influence. That's kind of a difficult one because how are you going to gauge that somebody isn't pulling the strings behind the scene? And because, I mean, I'm sure everybody here is fully familiar with the Dateline trope of insurance money. So if I really wanted my mom to die and I signed her up for medical assistance in death, or I at least push this upon her, how are they going to know that it wasn't me pulling the strings all
They
along?
probably do assessments with the person one-on-one to figure it out.
Yeah,
Like they
I
probably
could
go through
still,
multiple assessments
I
with
could
the person
still
on
see.
their own.
Well,
Now, to be fair, it is covered under insurance,
yeah.
to my understanding.
It's just I could see people persuading at least slowly over time, just kind of slowly be like, Mom, you've been in pain for quite some time. Would you not like to be in pain anymore? I like money.
This is covered under your insurance plan, and it would be quick and efficient.
You have nothing to worry about. It'll be okay. You'll gracefully go into the light. And
But
all.
okay, so with what you're saying, what's the difference between saying that to get insurance money and saying that just to like help somebody reach a conclusion of like they're unsure, they're suffering, and you're just helping them by explaining their options, right?
Because compassion is excellent camouflage for narcissism.
Yeah,
A
but
lot of
like
narcissists claim to be compassionate, but they're really not. And I know what you're saying, and it makes sense because there's no real way to gauge whether someone's being legitimately
Yeah.
compassionate or
Yeah.
they're actually trying to influence this person in their life to take this route. Because especially if you think about it, you don't need to go out and put fucking eye drops in someone's coffee or something. You can just slowly push them. Or a scenario that just popped in my head while I was saying that is, what if you were slowly poisoning somebody, right? Like putting antifreeze in their drink or Gatorade or something, and they were fucking miserable. Their body was falling apart, and then you push them to have MAID because they would qualify for it in that case.
yeah.
And once again, this is coming from someone who's in favor of MAID for people with
But
like ALS, Parkinson's, or some type
in
of.
that scenario though, if you're slowly poisoning somebody, wouldn't you have to prove that they have like a reason that they're suffering so much?
Because a lot of time with poison, they don't know they were
Yeah.
poisoned until after they've
They
died.
don't know, but
So-
like if you were to sign up for MAID and they were like, why? And you're like, well, I feel like shit constantly. Wouldn't the doctors first want to look into it and try
They
and
would,
determine
yeah.
why you
I-
feel like shit?
I can't remember what I was watching or where I heard this, but they're talking about this exact scenario. Now,
Really?
whether or not it had to do with MAID, I can't remember. But all I know is that I think the guy's wife was basically poisoning him over like months,
Okay.
and his organs started shutting down. Went to the doctors. I Now again, I can't remember if it had to do with MAID.
Mm-hmm.
I think it may have. But yeah, they basically did a bunch of tests on him, realized like, hey, your chlorine levels like spiked. And then he set up a cam. And
But
boom.
there's a lot of surreptitious ways to poison people that they don't detect for a long time, because a lot of the things involving poisoning, that's a very prolonged,
Yeah.
agonizing
Yeah.
death. So I could see it slipping through the cracks. I mean,
What I'm saying though is even if you don't figure out what it is, right? Your doctor's still gonna want to look into
Yeah.
it first
and
and try and figure out what it is.
this is a discussion that we're going to get into further down, because a big problem with Canada right now is its lack of doctors. We don't have doctors, which leads to impetuous care where they just kind of frivolously apply diagnoses, or they just brush you off because they just don't have the time for it.
Get in, get out.
Is that necessarily a fault of the doctor? No, it's a fault of a systemic failure of our healthcare system.
You know what I found out recently?
Go on.
Canada's medical schools are the hardest medical schools to get into.
Really?
To the point where a lot of people from Canada who want to go to medical school will go to an Ivy League school in the US because it's easier for them to get into. It is easier for them to go to like Harvard and get accepted to Harvard than it would be to get accepted to a medical school here.
That's very strange, especially in Canada where fucking we need doctors more than anything right now.
They are or have started to loosen the restrictions on if you already have if you were already a doctor in another country. They're trying to make it easier
the conservatives
for you to get all of the things that you need to be a doctor here. Like when I started working at the hospital, one of the girls who does the same job as me was a doctor in the Ukraine. And she's going through the process of trying to get all of her paperwork settled to be a doctor here. Do you know how much that must fucking suck to going from being a doctor to going and just working at a desk and being shit on by doctors because you're not a doctor?
That's one thing that I'm really glad that the conservatives are trying to implement as a blue seal, where you just basically come over, you take a test to show that you're competent, and and then
like,
you'll,
even if I understand that if you were going to become a doctor in another country, some countries would be more lenient on letting you get your doctorate than others. But if you think about places like Europe, they probably have just as much schooling as anywhere else. So why wouldn't it just be transferable?
That's what I don't understand. That's what doesn't make sense. And Canada's kind of dug themselves its own fucking grave right now. It's, at least with referring to this issue, it's, we've caused it. We've caused all of our own issues that were so easily avoidable. And it's been issues that people have been talking about for years now, and now it's here and we're kind of in the shit because of it.
Well, also, because so if you did schooling somewhere else and then you moved to Canada, it's difficult. If you were from Canada and you did schooling somewhere else, they don't give you as much shit. They just accept it. They're like, oh, you did it? Cool. Because you're already a Canadian citizen.
That makes sense. I get. Well, I understand.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense. But it's like I just mean I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
That's silly.
It's an issue that could be easily solved, but due to Canada's just fucking insane amount of bureaucracy, it makes these processes just overly complicated.
I understand that they want to make sure that the people who are being doctors, who are going into that line of work, are knowledgeable. But you're also making it incredibly hard for us to even have doctors in the first place. And then our doctors are going to the US and working in the US instead because it's easier. It's easier and they'll make more money.
Yeah.
And we lose a lot of doctors in Canada because of our healthcare system. I mean, say you want about the privatized healthcare, and I hate it. It's gross. But at the same time, doctors are going to go where the money's at. And that's exactly what they're doing.
Another shady thing on the doctors, if I could be wrong on this, but I believe that like the majority of doctors are in retirement age,
Yes.
and there's just no one to replace
Actually,
them.
I don't know how much I can say without it being technically a breach of confidentiality, but a lot of doctors are coming out of retirement.
Yeah,
to go back to work.
They have to stay in their profession way past the retirement age. Basically work themselves to death.
But when you think about it, the people that are in retirement age that are doctors, it was probably fucking a lot easier for them to get
Oh god, yeah.
to get their degrees and everything. It was probably a lot easier for them to become doctors, and that's why there's so many of them. And now that it's more difficult, you don't see as many.
Yeah.
So the next point is give informed consent to receive medical assistance in dying. Generally, visitors to Canada are not eligible for medical assistance in dying. So that seems kind of ambiguous to me. The generally visitors to Canada are not eligible.
There's probably really specific
Yeah, I wonder
boxes
if there would,
that you need to check.
there would need to be some collusion between
Like maybe like you're from the US and you don't have that option, whether it's the US doesn't have it or it's too expensive. So you come here, but let's say you come here for it because it's more affordable for you and you're set to die in like 6 months, like you have a really aggressive cancer or something. They'll probably say yes. But like if you were like
maybe.
But if you came from the US and you were like, well,
It depends
I
on the
just
state.
feel like shit, then they'll probably be like, no, we're not going to do it.
I feel like doo-doo.
Yeah. I feel like poo-poo and I want you to kill me. And they'll be like, no.
And he'll be like, yes, or I'm going to do it.
Here, take these. Just throws a medication.
Mike, can you do me a favor? Can you just like slide forward slightly in your chair? I just feel like you're kind of out of frame and it's bugging me. And then I'm just gonna
slide.
Well, I mean, it doesn't help that he fucking knocked the whole thing over.
Yeah, Mike.
How about now? Oh, am I better? Am I better, Ryan?
Oh, you're so fucking good, Mike.
Oh,
you're so
man.
fucking great.
Oh,
I can
shucks.
see. There you go. You're right in the fucking
So,
Making me blush.
off topic, where'd you get your pants?
Amazon. Why do you like
Beautiful.
them?
I said that as soon as I walked in. I was like,
Yeah, but I want to hear it again. I
Can
want to be
you-
affirmed.
can you show everybody your pants?
I think they can see it in that camera, but they're kind of bedazzled. They got some yellow here, some green here, some blue up here.
I walked into
some
the
more
room.
blue inside of them.
I walked into the room and immediately I was like, those are amazing pants.
Yeah, I'm mixing my style up. I just kind of had this. I know we're sidetracked once again. I just kind of had this epiphany that I've been dressing the same since high school.
It's
just
very
like
you.
band t-shirt and fucking plain old jeans. So I'm like, it's time I inject a little bit of style in my life.
It's very you.
Fluorescent
Yeah.
blue hair.
That and flannels. I've taken up flannels. I mean, who doesn't like
Was that
flannels?
not something that you did before?
No.
I mean, the band t-shirt things, or like a graphic t-shirt was very much your style, but I also assumed
boring.
flannels would have
It's
been.
so bland.
Should wear a fedora.
Yeah. Do you want
Frig
my
off,
hat?
I'm not doing a fuck. I do like your hat, actually.
Do you want my hat?
I mean, I've teased you about your hat since you've been here, but I do like your hat.
It's a good hat. I found it at Forever 21.
21.
When they went out of business, I was so upset. You can find a lot of cool stuff.
So
They're back in business.
Nice.
we're going to
Did you single-handedly keep them in
Yeah.
business?
Mike, I'm
Nice.
gonna have to formally request you do not
The teacher's getting angry.
Ooh.
I'm gonna have to formally
Punish me,
request-
Ryan.
You're gonna be so fucking punished.
Oh, man.
Your ass is gonna look like a cauliflower with a firecracker.
Beet
in it.
red.
Just fucking.
Ugh.
Very prolapsed.
So we're gonna move on to. Let me just open it up here. I'm gonna make sure all this is working. It is not freaking working. Why isn't it working? Okay, you two bicker amongst yourselves for a second while I try to fix this.
Melanie, how's it going?
Michael,
Oh, hey.
I'm getting fucking sick and tired of this.
Word. Yeah, let's hear it. Hear it.
He said
yeah.
he said to bicker, so I figured we should just
shit.
start an argument. You
fuck
drank a
you.
fucking, you brought fucking chocolate milk?
Hey, what's your name? Hey, what's your name?
What was that from?
What's your name?
I remember that. I remember watching that, but what was that from?
Tell me your name first.
Mike.
Okay.
Hey, fuck you, Mike.
I got it. So,
Ezekiel.
wait, no, I don't. Keep
I
bickering
don't
amongst
remember.
yourselves.
I don't remember what that was from.
It's just a video of a guy on an island or like across the river. He's like, "Hey, what's your name?" Ezekiel. Ezekiel, go fuck yourself.
I remember watching it, but I don't remember I couldn't remember the guy's name or anything or why he was doing it.
Hey, what's your mom's name? You let my mom out with this. Can't remember the other guy's name. Fuck.
In more interesting news, there's a new WoW patch out.
Nice.
Just for everybody's.
Wow.
Yeah, just for everybody's entertainment. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning yesterday because I went to bed at 7:50 because I had a migraine. I woke up and I was like, I can't go back to sleep.
Right now.
And I played WoW for 12 hours straight.
God damn.
And I was like, wow.
Wow.
So I gotta apologize, everybody. I had all this set up before we started recording, and for some reason, the window for this just decided to fuck off. So welcome back, because I'm probably going to remove all that.
Yeah.
So they have implemented safeguards for people whose death is not reasonably foreseeable. Whatever the fuck that means, whatever reasonably foreseeable means. So they created these safeguards in order to prevent people from, of course, abusing the service. But considering our government can't even get a fucking app made, forgive me if I do not lend credence to their safeguards. For those...
In that context, wouldn't reasonably foreseeable just mean foreseeable?
I reasonably foreseeable.
I don't know why
That
they
just
would say reasonably,
that just
but it
seems
sounds like they're
Yeah,
just saying
it's a filler word.
it sounds just that they're like, yeah, you have cancer and you're gonna die in 6 months. That's foreseeable.
The real question would be what would be unreasonable?
That's what I want to know. So this is
The unreasonably.
I haven't read through this yet, so when I read through this is going to be it's going to be actual emotion, general, actual pathos.
Is your dick gonna cry?
It's gonna fucking weep. Jinx.
Nice man.
Look at the man on that cock.
I love how we're talking about something that's just really serious and we're just keep making dick jokes, but that's how we cope with life, okay? That's how we do it. Requests for MAID must be made in writing. A written request must be signed by one independent witness, and it must be made after the person is informed that they have a grievous and irremediable medical condition. Fuck that word. A paid professional, personal, or healthcare worker can be an independent witness. So that kind of also makes me a bit cautious. A paid professional.
I think they're just saying, not that you're paying them, but if you were signing it, somebody who is working in the hospital can be a witness. They're paid in the sense that they're at work. Your nurse is currently at work and she's watching you sign this.
Yeah, it doesn't say if you're direct a privatized person, because here's where I draw a big line with when we start getting into the discussion about them implementing mental health into this. Is you can
We're not there yet.
Yeah, you're right. I'll wait.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Yes, I tend to do that. It's the only type of head I get. Womp womp. Two.
Did you just say womp womp?
2 independent doctors or nurse practitioners must provide an assessment and confirm that all of the eligibility requirements are met. If neither of the 2 practitioners who assess eligibility has expertise in the medical condition that is causing the person suffering, they must consult with a practitioner who has such expertise.
Okay, just like if your doctor, that's just like if you have a problem and your doctor doesn't know, they're going to consult a specialist anyway.
Mike is dying of bumhole cancer, he's not going to go see someone who specializes in like mammograms and stuff.
Yeah.
So would that mean that the person that they consult would also have to sign off on it? Because like, what's keeping
they
them
would
from...
have to consult, and they'll have to have a record of this because everything that a doctor does has to be recorded.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it goes into malpractice. So it's the same as if you said, my back hurts, and then your doctor was like, well, I don't fucking know, and they send you to somebody who is a specialist in that. They would have to document that entire, like, I referred them out to this.
I guess
And
what
then you would
I'm-
have to get all of the referral notes
Yeah.
on that too. So it would be the same as, like, you're dying of cancer, you talk to your family doctor about MAID. Your family doctor would have to document them sending you to a specialist for, let's say, breast cancer.
Yeah.
Oops.
And then you would probably have to get all of the notes from that consult also for this. And then your doctor can sign off on it.
Now, my only argument towards that is that if someone goes in for cannabis prescription and a doctor's against cannabis, then you're no longer dealing with like proper procedures in practice.
Yes, and
Because it kind of goes
you
to...
can that's actually pretty common. You can report your doctor for
Yeah,
that.
I do want to add,
Because they can't bring their personal religious beliefs, which is usually what's
Yeah.
the case. They can't bring that into work when deciding how to treat somebody. So if your doctor was like against prescribing you cannabis because they don't believe in it, that's the devil's lettuce. You can't have that.
Yeah.
You can report your doctor for that.
yeah,
But
I
if they
think-
word it in a way that doesn't come off in that...
If your doctor in any way goes against your wishes, you can report them for that, and a whole investigation will be opened up. Whether you're in the right or your doctor's in the right doesn't matter. They'll go into an entire investigation to figure out what happened.
I guess what I'm getting at is if someone goes in and the option for MAID is brought to light, like here's this option, but then say there's like multitude of other options that
Yeah.
are considered not common practice,
Yeah.
and like what's to say that these or a specific doctor will like just throw that option out, like, oh, I don't believe that's
Well, you also
that'll work,
you
so here
also
we're just
need-
gonna give you this.
But you also need two doctors to
Oh, for sure.
to
Yeah.
sign off on this, right? So if one of them says no and the other one says yes, then they're probably going to look at it and be like, "Well, why are you
Yeah.
guys on different pages here?" And they'll probably have an investigation into that before moving forward
Yeah.
with a yes or no judgment. They'll probably consult both doctors if they don't have the same opinion.
yeah, that's something that kind of concerns me when seeing doctors too, is that they're going to apply their own preconceived biases.
Yeah.
It
And that's why you need two. But if they're not agreeing, they're not gonna just be like, yeah, no, you can kill yourself.
Yeah. See, that's...
Or you can suffer. They'll want to find out exactly what happened to say yes or no. They're not gonna just let that go.
I guess to a degree, like I know this is kind of off topic, but it kind of is still on topic because it's dealing with doctors. When you go through a process and a number of doctors prescribe beta blockers or hormone injections into like kids, then it's like, how do you keep that from happening
I don't
outside of that field?
understand
like-
what you're saying.
Basically, like I'm getting into like hormone replacements
Yeah.
and like sex change in children, like below 18, below 16. Like it's kind of, now I guess I'm more against that kind of age limit after 18 or whatever. Like A1, go for it. But like, how do you determine what's ethical and what's not? Like in terms of,
I think
I don't
in
even
those
know.
cases it's pretty much the formal way of them doing it was they would consult multiple people.
Yeah.
Like you would consult a psychologist, you would consult a pediatrician,
Yeah.
you would consult everybody that could possibly be involved
Yeah.
Well,
in
that-
making that decision for a child.
When it comes down to that decision, a lot of it falls on an endocrinologist.
You would want to consult all of these people to make sure that the child is making a choice that they really
Yeah.
believe in.
But they, at the same time, a child is easily susceptible to having other people's biases and opinions
Yes.
pushed upon them, because a child doesn't really, and let's be honest here, a child doesn't really know what's best for them.
Yeah.
When I was a child, I wanted to fucking eat my boogers and fucking play video games all day. Was that the best option for me?
Well,
No.
here's the thing. Not everybody is the same either.
Yeah.
Because you do have children who can make informed decisions about themselves.
To an extent, I believe.
Like, I think in those cases it's really based on a person-to-person basis.
Yeah.
Because you do get kids who are taking up, like, adult roles in their life. And they did have to make these, like, they have had to make these hard decisions before. So they're more accustomed to making these decisions. Therefore, they themselves will make themselves more informed on what they're doing because they're used to having to make decisions that normally they never would.
And kind of why I brought up like kids is that no, I don't know if it's as prominent an idea now as it was when I read this, but I believe that there is like activists trying to push
Oh, absolutely.
like younger people to acquire MAID.
I think
So it's like
acquired
or go through the process of MAID.
Yeah, like they
So
qualify
it's like
for it.
qualify. So
Well, I mean, at the same time, like, when you think about it, like, would you say you have a kid, because he said it's 18 and
Right
over,
now.
yeah,
right?
right now it is.
But
But
what he's
say
saying
you
is
have
that
a kid who's 13 years old and has a terminally ill disease. They're set to die in, like, a year. Would you, and your kid is, like, suffering, like, actively, like, your kid's bedbound, your kid
Yes.
looks like a fucking skeleton.
Yeah.
Are you going to say, no, I'll let him ride it out for another year?
Yeah, I'm gonna say
right?
no. I'm gonna pull up and sit next to him, eat some fucking Orville Redenbacher.
That's
But
the
with-
same as
Yeah.
the same as like your kid's in a coma and you decide to pull the plug, right?
That's currently, but like, was it next year they're implementing
It's-
homelessness,
No, that
or they're
yeah,
trying
we're
to?
gonna get into that.
Yeah,
but, they're
so-
gonna implement people with mental illness will qualify for that, which also will encapsulate people with substance abuse
Yeah.
issues. So
I guess
let's,
I'm looking like way like down the road
Mm-hmm.
when they start like increasing the range. Then it's
But,
like,
like,
where do
I
you
don't
draw the
think-
line?
Like, because it's currently only 18 plus.
Yeah.
When I think of it as I have a child
Oh.
who is terminally ill.
Yeah.
I would like. I don't want them to suffer laying there, not being able to do
Yes,
anything.
yes.
They're basically a husk of
Okay.
themselves at this point.
But-
I would look into it if that was an option for me.
Yeah.
So I think to an extent, yeah, you should be able to put younger people into that
Okay.
program.
Like
Right?
I'm not against that. Like if your kid's like terminally ill or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it makes sense.
yeah, Mike kills kids all the
don't-
time.
Don't let your kids suffer, or don't let this person suffer. But where I guess it's more like going into like, at what point does the eligibility like stop? Like where do you stop the
I know
at what point
this-
does it become unethical?
I know this is about to get
Yeah.
way ahead of what we're talking about.
yeah.
But say you have a 9-year-old kid who is addicted to like 5 different harsh drugs. They're in a very like formative part of their life in development. Is that gonna fuck them up if they decide like to keep going with life, right? Like, is that gonna stunt their growth in like a bunch of different ways, especially like brain development?
Oh.
Like, is that going
Well, if that's
to...
the case, should we just kill people with fetal alcohol syndrome?
No, because that's not quite the same. You can have fetal alcohol syndrome and be a normal, like, functioning person.
But at the same time, it's like there are children who are born addicted to drugs and stuff because of the mother. To me,
Yes.
what you're saying.
Well, they're
is,
addicted to drugs, but it's not them actively, like, we'll say, for example, like, you have a 9-year-old kid who has been themselves using drugs for, let's say, 3 years. So all of those formative developmental years for their brain, how is... Because I don't know how drugs are going to affect brain development, right? But it could completely hinder them at that point. It could actively make
but
them
at the same time,
have a shit life they hate.
Who's going to make the decision for them to
Yes,
kill themselves?
that's the thing. They probably, if they're in that situation, they probably don't have somebody capable of making that decision for them.
But before we continue to get too far ahead of ourselves, let's finish this list of the safeguards for if you're not actively dying. So the person must be informed that they can withdraw the request at any time in any manner. You imagine if they didn't have that in there? It's like, no, I actually found this new holistic treatment. Nope, due date. The person must be informed of available appropriate means to relieve their suffering, including counseling services, mental health and disability support services, community services, and palliative care, and must be offered consultations with professionals who provide those services. So that's good, I guess. But
What do you mean, I guess?
well, what I mean
You're
is
saying they have to, like...
No, what I'm saying is that with how stressed with our healthcare system is right now,
Yeah.
I do believe I could foresee a lot of corners being cut. And regardless of whether this person's going to be informed of all their services or not, that's when you get into preconceived biases.
See, that's where I was getting in with the ethics of like, there's this option, but if they don't consider the option, that's like, how do you determine that? And I mean, you made a good point. Like, there's probably a lot of people involved.
Yeah,
Making,
they're not
like,
going to have like 2
yeah,
people making this whole decision.
At least you'd hope not.
Well, they have 2
Yeah.
people who sign off on it.
You have 2 doctors who sign off on it, but a lot more people are involved in all of this, in the entire process.
Yeah.
You have 2 people who are making a final decision, but those aren't the only 2 people involved throughout the entire process.
Which is probably like a lot of processes that a lot of people are like, when they hear it on the news, they're like, "Ooh, that's bad, that's wrong." But it's like,
that's
like
why
you said,
this
there's
is
probably a
why
lot more
this is
people
why
involved.
a lot of the world's attention's kind of fixated on Canada right now to see how we handle this, because a lot of people see this as like, whoa, what the fuck is happening in Canada? With good reason. The person and the practitioners, must have discussed reasonable and available means to relieve the person's suffering and agree that the person has seriously considered those means. I don't know how you figure that out, that a person has seriously considered those means, but
probably through like a psych evaluation. You probably go through something like that. To see, you probably go through like a psych evaluation to see how long have you been considering something like this, to make sure that they are definitively like set on this.
The eligibility assessments must take at least 90 days, but this period can be shortened if the person is about to lose the capacity to make healthcare decisions, as long as both assessments have been completed. Immediately before MAID is provided, the practitioner must give the person opportunity to withdraw the request and ensure that they give express consent. And that concludes all of the safeguards. Do you guys have any final thoughts you want to add to any of those?
I think those are reasonable. I did have this thought is, like, if you put this in the news and you say 2 doctors have to sign off, a lot of people are going to be like, what the fuck? Because they're not going to think about all of the back end stuff. People are stupid.
And the media doesn't portray it
Yeah.
very
The
well.
media's not going to
either.
portray this in, like, a good way.
Well,
Because they're going to want to get reactions out of this.
like I said, I'm all for MAID up until they reform it. Now, speaking of the reform, this is kind of where we get into the real meat and potatoes of this whole thing, which is the contentious aspect of it, of them implementing mental health into the fray.
Can I make a single comment first?
What?
I want to remind you that this will not be a black and white issue of a definite this is good and this is bad.
Yeah, I also want to add that none of us here are mental health professionals. None of us, we're just here to provide our own anecdotal or even conjecture aspect of it, because when we got into this back and forth on text, I mean, it got pretty heated.
It's about the equivalent of like two religions debating which one is right.
Yeah,
it's just,
are either people wrong?
No.
I don't think Melanie's wrong. I think my
Ryan's
girlfriend's
wrong.
She can say I'm wrong all they want, but usually people with lesser intelligence are incapable of seeing other aspects and other points of view.
Listen, this is one of the only things that I've been able to, like, knowledgeably debate about without sounding like a fucking idiot, so I'm proud of myself.
It's not working.
But I would like to say that, like, I'm a mental health professional. I have plenty of mental health issues.
Don't think that makes you a professional.
Yeah, it does. I'm an expert.
Practice doesn't make perfect in this aspect. Okay.
But this will not be a black and white issue. You don't have to definitely say, like, this is good or this is bad, because I don't think it will be this is good or this is bad.
It's very...
They will have parts of it that you will agree with. They will have parts of it that you disagree with, and that's normal.
Yeah.
Now, with that preamble aside, let's jump into it.
Okay,
so,
Philip DeFranco.
Fuck.
Thanks, Philly D.
You've just been filled in. I love your faces. So basically, a big area of contention regarding this is not just the mental health aspect. There's a whole nother aspect of it as well, and that's in Canada, people with drug addiction are viewed as having a mental health condition. So under this new legislation, people who are addicted to drugs will technically be able to apply for MAID. Now, whether they'll be granted access to those services, it's hard to say, because once again, that's going to vary greatly depending on the doctors you're dealing with. And, you know, that could get kind of complicated there. But now, just right out of the gate, I vociferously oppose this.
Can you use a smaller word, please? I'm an idiot.
He strongly
adamantly I oppose this. I really, really don't like it. It bad for brain. I don't make me sad.
Thanks.
Because I kind of see this through a much more malevolent lens, which we'll get through here shortly, because this is kind of a rabbit hole that gets more and more contentious and kind of more nihilistic. And at least from my perspective, as we go through it, was you and Zoe kind of saw it as more of a positive thing, because the way I see it is that this is mainly affecting the working class and the poor, and this is the demographic that's something that a service like this is actively targeting. In fact, I think it was Global News, it might have been CTV News, did a video that there are people who are currently struggling because Canada's a fucking disaster right now in terms of like finances and everything, and people trying to make ends meet, because more and more on people's plates and less of it is food. So these people are applying for MAID just because of situational depression. And are they getting approved for it? Probably not right now. But it's just the fact that to me the writing's already on the wall that these are the most vulnerable people of society are going to be the ones targeted for this. And at the same time, when it comes to mental health is such an innately subjective thing. Like, like if I ate the last cookie and Mike said it made him sad, I'm going to say, no, he can't be that sad about it. But Mike is going to feel sad at different levels than what I feel. So
sad.
I can't really, I mean, yeah, people do it, but it's like, yeah, Mike, you got really upset by that. You no need to cry over it.
It's a good cookie. Damn it.
And that's kind of where this whole, at least in my mind, this is where this really gets complicated in terms of mental illness, because it's going to affect, mental illness affects everybody to different degrees. It's like, I guess you could compare it to a snowflake, where there's no two snowflakes are the same. Me and Mike aren't going to feel things the same. And I do not believe any two professionals can come to that consensus, at least when it comes to mental health. And if we refer back to when I said they have to be in a competent state of mind, you can't be in a competent state of mind and be able to apply for MAID in terms of mental illness. It just, those two things are antithetical to one another. Because if Mike is currently going through, I don't know, if he's schizophrenic, I know I keep using Mike as an example, but
that's why I'm
if
here.
Mike is schizophrenic and they don't have any treatments really to, I mean, yeah, you can take medication, but you can't cure schizophrenia. He's not going to be able to apply for those services. At least he shouldn't be able to, because he's technically not in the right state of mind. Nor do I think people with schizophrenia will, like, is there a point where they can be in a state of mind to sign up for these services?
So
it's like such a messy, I don't want to say they're never in the right state of mind, because that's not what I'm trying to say, but to me it's just such a messy, opaque thing to get into.
The way you're making it sound makes it sound like somebody who has schizophrenia is never capable of making a decision for themselves.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Somebody with schizophrenia can be perfectly fine, and you would have no idea. As, like, depending, because there's degrees to it, right?
Yeah, it's just when someone is in that state, it's like, what would classify as a point when they are able,
well, because they're not going
pursue...
to be in that state forever. It's a fluctuating thing, right? Like, if you have schizophrenia, for example, let's say you hear voices, there are periods where it doesn't happen. It's not something that happens just straight constantly.
But if that's a state, could doctors really just say, yes, they hear voice, they're in a decent state of mind for these prolonged periods of time, but they do have relapses where they kind of go into these more turbulent states? Is that really grounds to allow somebody to kill themselves?
Well, it depends, right? Like, it would depend on how poorly you view your life, because you're not the person experiencing it.
But that's,
right?
once again, that's situational, how
Yeah,
poorly they view
but
your life. But it's always possible to change your perspective on life. I mean,
yes,
I'm pretty sure we've all been there.
When you think about it, like, it's similar to me being in a really depressive state, being suicidal, and you who is not experiencing that, saying, well, it's fine, it's not that bad, but you're not the person experiencing it, so you're not experiencing it to the same degree that person is. To me, it could be something that's life ruining, right? Like, I guess, like, an example of this is like when people say that their nudes get leaked. In my mind, I'm like, why the fuck does that matter? Who cares? But to other people, they kill themselves about that, right? Like, to them, that ruins their entire life. To me, I'm like, so? You saw my tits, good job, right? Like, you're not going to ruin my life about that. It's all about just how somebody else is going to see that.
Yeah, individual perspective.
In that case, it sounds like a doctor, it's your fundamental duty to help a person change their outlook on life, help them see things through a more positive lens, especially with how fucking nihilistic and downright depressing the world can be right now. To me, this is our government basically throwing up their arms and being like, well, don't know what we can tell you. You're a lost cause. And to me, that's just providing people with a more pessimistic outlook.
But,
Because
like, hearing you say that right now, you are assuming that the doctor is not going to do everything that they can.
absolutely, I don't believe
You
they're
are
going
assuming that the doctor is going to do as little work as possible.
Damn right.
Both doctors, actually, because there's two, and everybody involved. You're going to assume that all of these people are going to do the bare minimum to give this person choices.
I do believe it's the government. It's the government throwing in the towel on those who are most vulnerable.
And this was one thing that I brought up when we had our debate through text message for everybody to see, because it was a group chat. I think your views on the government and on doctors is giving you a more negative look to everything here than what if you had not, like, that, if you were a little bit less, I'll say, upset, because I can't think of the right
Making me
word.
drink.
Yeah. I was just thinking that he's drinking. But I think your views on these things, like the government and healthcare, I think are giving you a little bit of a different view than if you didn't have such harsh criticisms.
I'm gonna come right out of the gate and say I fucking hate our prime minister. I think he's a covert fucking narcissist, and his face says it all. And I believe he has fucking put this country in a goddamn landfill. Does that mean I'm anti-liberal? No. In fact, I voted for the liberals. I voted NDP. I have yet to vote conservative. I just don't like the man himself. I think he is malevolent in his intentions, because just seeing what he's done currently, I don't agree with it. But I don't want to get this into a full-on political debate, because that's not my intent. But to me, them passing the measures on to allow this to be applicable for people with mental illness just comes off as an abdication of ethics. I do not believe it's ethical to allow these people to end their lives in that degree, because there are always alternative forms of medicine that, let's just face it, is illegal in North America, the U.S. to a greater extent. I mean, there's like ayahuasca treatments that you can try. There's like, I will say that we have made, one thing I will give credit for is that we have made advancements in the realms of psychedelics, like being able to get ketamine treatments and that sort of thing. But really, what really fucking chaps my piss hole when it comes to this whole fucking thing is when people talk about when they talk about allowing this for people with mental illness, they use the word compassion. They throw it around like a little boy's dick in a fucking YMCA locker room. To me, it's not compassion, it's abdication. It's an abdication of their fundamental duties as a medical professional to give these people the care that they need, or send them elsewhere, not just fucking throw your hands up and say, well, there's nothing I can do for you. And not to mention, like we said, there's going to be doctors that are probably going to oppose one another on this. It's just such a fucking messy thing.
Yeah. But also,
just like,
take, for example, somebody who wants to kill themselves, somebody who is incredibly suicidal.
yes.
Would you rather them just straight up go kill themselves, right? Where they've done it, it's done, they did it themselves. Or would you rather them look to MAID, go through all of the processes, and then come to a conclusion of either yes or no?
I don't even think MAID should be on the fucking table.
But, like, because if you go through all of those processes, if you go through all of that, you might come out of it and you would have gotten, because of all of the assessments and everything that they have to do, maybe you came out of it and you were like, you know what? I don't want to kill myself. I'm going to retract that. I don't want to go through with this anymore. I got the help that I needed. Which would be fucking awful in the sense that you had to go through a rigorous set of assessments to determine if you were ready to kill yourself to get the help that you needed, instead of being able to just access those resources already. Or you go through it and you're like, you know what? I went through all of this. I've listened to everybody's opinions on this. I'm still set in what I want to do.
Doesn't matter, in my opinion.
I mean, it would be less trauma inducing, I guess, if you went through that, like, with the MAID procedure. Like, if you are so inclined to just end your life, like, would you rather them blow their brains out in the kitchen?
No, I wouldn't rather them blow their brains out. I'd rather them be I'd rather them be shown some actual compassion, because there is typically there is a preponderance of life occurrences or things that have happened to lead people to the point where they want to kill themselves, whether that may be traumatic upbringing, whether that may be an abusive partner, or there's a myriad of things it could be. And a lot of the times, at least in today's culture, it seems like a lot of people come to the conclusion that this is it. They just want to end it all and they can't move on anymore. They're not shown the proper compassion, and they do not have access to the proper services to facilitate an improvement in their mental health, because Canada is fucked, and they can throw around the fucking word compassion, that they're trying to include people with mental illness as a way to be compassionate, but they can slurp my fucking fuck juice.
No, this kind of gets back into, like, the ethics of things and kind of different perspectives and such, but you could kind of make the same argument for, like, drug addicts or, like, criminals, like people who constantly, like, they're in and out of prison. They go in for prison for, say, rape, and then they get out of prison. What do? They do the exact same thing, and then they're back in prison. Like, how do you could set up all of these kind of helplines or professionals to try to remedy their situation, but at the end of the day, they're just going to go back and do the same thing. So it's like, how do you determine what is actually helpful, and at what level do you say, like, okay, this person is beyond help?
And that's what I mean. How do you arrive to that consensus that this person is now, is he beyond help, or is he just beyond your help?
I have just come to the realization that I understand why me and you are so opposite in this entire, like, discussion.
Do share.
And this is gonna get upsetting, possibly, for some people. The reason I think that we are on so, like, vastly different sides of this is because you are somebody who would never consider doing this for your mental health issues, and I am somebody who would. And, like, that's really, like, shitty to, like, bring up right now, but, like, when you think about it, like, I have been, within the past year, incredibly suicidal. I have been ready to kill myself. The reason I am in this room right now is because I was prepared to kill myself. And you are on the other side of that, where you are not considering that in any capacity.
Not at the moment. I mean, I'm not going to get into whether I have in the past or
I won't
not,
say you have ever been like that. I won't say, like, you have been or you haven't been. I think in that capacity, that's not applicable here, because you can, it depends, it's a degree, like, it's a scale, right? You can be suicidal and have no intention of doing it. You can be suicidal and you can get over it because it's a situation in your life, or you can just live with that life, like, as an entire, like, condition, right? But, like, I think the reason we are both in different areas is because one of us is ready to do it and one of us isn't. And I think that's why I understand from a mental health standpoint why people would say yes to this and why people would say no.
And it's like from my perspective, that always leads me to a line of questioning. Like, if you're at that state of mind, have you done anything to ameliorate it? Because I know when I've been in some pretty shit ass places without getting into too much detail, but then that kind of leads me to come to an assessment of my life. Like, okay, what is missing? Is it, you start off pretty broad. Like, is it monetary? Am I missing fucking some stupid possession? Am I missing out on the latest new fucking toy, hot craze, whatever, cell phone? Because a lot of people do place their mental health onto material objects. Huge problem right there. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying that a lot of people do. Like the whole FOMO thing. Is it spiritual? Is it monetary? Is it relationship? Is it loneliness? I mean, there's a lot of factors to take into account to maybe why your mental health could be waning. And with the current state of Canada and our anemic lack of doctors, I don't believe that the doctors are going to take the proper precautions and take the proper do the right thing, I suppose, and ask the right questions and saying to the right people. I don't believe it's going to happen. I believe that the way our healthcare system is, it is very fallible, and it's very precarious, and it's barely holding on as it is. And I believe a lot of people are going to abuse this this service. In my opinion, the door is wide open for it, because we do not have the resources to properly vet people to deal with it. And they can say, like I said, they can put in all the safeguards and precautions they want, but people are tenacious. And if people really want something, they're going to do it. And if it isn't someone's religious beliefs to not commit suicide, well, they're going to go about it a different way. Same reason why people might go out and say suicide by cop. It's like, why don't they just commit suicide? Well, they'd rather go out in another way. I'm not, that's probably a horrible comparison because those two, but I think you guys kind of understand what I'm trying to say, where I guess it harkens back to what you said at the beginning of the conversation, where someone might not have the guts, I guess, doing air quotes there. They might not have the ability to follow through the chutzpah, to follow through with it themselves. So that's when they're going to look for somebody else to do it for them. And that's what kind of leads me back to the whole discussion of, I just don't believe we have the proper, no amount of safeguards are going to stop people from getting what they want.
Yeah, but that's also why this can't just be a good or bad thing.
Yeah.
It's the same as anything, really. Something can be inherently good for people. Not saying this is, just in general. Something can be inherently good for people, and people will abuse it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen no matter what.
Then it shouldn't exist.
But, well, no, because you say it shouldn't exist, but that can happen with anything.
Yes, it can.
Like, for example, a playground can be great. You bring your kids to the playground, they get to socialize with other kids, they get to play, they get their energy out. Downside, predators.
Predators.
And come looking at your kids, come try to steal your kids. Should you ban all playgrounds? No.
No, but we should actually lock up predators, but we don't.
But that's the thing, right? Like, everything can have a pro to it and a con to it. It can be something that is inherently good, but people will take advantage of it and abuse it and turn it into something that will have aspects to it that are bad. But it doesn't mean that you get rid of that thing.
I find another thing to consider is, like, a lot of, like, as you guys are bantering back and forth to each other, I'm kind of like thinking, like, man,
Mike's
history,
a fucking spectator.
But it's like I'm seeing from both sides, and, like, what do I actually believe in this? I don't fucking know. Like, it's I go back to, like, it's
so your opinion's kind of tentative.
I don't think my opinion fucking matters. Like, it's just I don't, there's nothing that I can say to make someone believe whatever. Like, I don't even know what I believe in, like, in terms of, like, what's right or wrong, like, what is ethical, what is not. Like, if you ask me ethical questions, I'm probably going to be like, well, there's this side, like, I'm probably not going to come up with a definitive answer. But like looking at kind of historical movements or like new processes or implementations on like healthcare or whatever system you're trying to look at, there's like the startup, which is like rocky. Then there's like a
Yeah.
I have the tiger. But there's like a startup process that's very rocky, where they try and figure out like, okay, what's ethical, what's not, who's going to be in on this, who's not going to be in on this, why, they take into all the considerations. And then there's going to be like if it's positive or I guess positive or negative, there's going to be a rebound period where it's like, okay, it's going to settle down. There's going to be more figuring out, how do we make this work? Should we make this work? And I feel like they're kind of in that process now, like with their I was reading an article and they're like, there's a lot of doctors and insurance companies like dipping in and out constantly on MAID because they can't figure out the ethics, like the law.
That's what I mean.
On this.
It's such a messy,
Yes.
hot topic fucking issue.
Yeah. But I think over time, like, it's only been around for 7 years, 6 years.
2016.
Okay, so yeah, it's very young in terms of like, how long have we been here? How long has society been here? Like, maybe in 100 years they'll have it figured out.
Maybe, but I just don't think we're there yet to be able to implement this as something so innately subjective, like mental health, because we still don't understand mental health as a society. We don't. Yeah. We're getting to the point where people can grasp mental health better, and it's like, because the zeitgeist surrounding mental health has changed drastically over the last, especially 100 years. We're not throwing people in fucking asylums anymore, and we don't think that the woman's uterus is wandering throughout her body and she has hysteria whenever she's upset, or it's, we've progressed a lot as a society since then. And to me, that this whole MAID thing for mental health just comes off, and it will always come off to me like we're just giving up. Yes, Melanie.
Mental health progression hasn't been over the past 100 years. I'll fucking tell you that.
No,
it's a lot, like, there's a lot less, like...
No, I mean changed drastically over the last 100 years.
Yes. I would even venture to shorten that to the last 50 years.
And that's why I said, we used to throw people in asylums back.
Because when you think about it, like, oh God, John F. Kennedy's sister?
He has a cyst? He had a cyst? Is that what killed him?
Was it? God, it was like a president's relative of some kind. Like a president that, like, isn't, like, too far back. She had a fucking lobotomy done.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they still do lobotomies in some cases.
Like,
I don't think for mental health, but...
And for her, it was just for, like, something pretty minor.
Actually, I know what you're talking about. I do remember hearing about that.
And, like, that was a lot more recent than people would like to think.
Yeah, that was in, like, the 60s, 50s.
One of the wildest things to me is people think of, like, humans' progressions throughout time, like technological advancements, everything like that. And they think that it's been so long. Like, this has started happening, like, hundreds of years ago. And nobody realizes that these things happened within, like, a lifetime of somebody who is currently alive. Yeah. Like, you don't realize that we're only making these progressions now.
I feel like just as a civilization, we don't know what the fuck's going on because things are going so fast.
Well,
and it's just like you're trying to keep up.
We're progressing too quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't... And that's one of those arguments for, like, millennials. And why are they so depressed? And it's because they're living in a time of incredible advancement that they don't have time to grasp what's going on.
Information overload.
Yeah, before everything's changing again.
Here's a statistic for you. We consume more information in one day than someone 700 years ago did in their entire lives. I'm.
You just reminded me of a TikTok
Why is that
video I
funny to
saw.
you? Why is it so funny to you?
There was a rave that was happening, and somebody was like, imagine if you brought somebody from the 1800s here.
Where does your mind go?
And
Where is your mind going?
There's a hole.
There's a hole, and it's making some stupid noise now.
There's a whole like TikTok thing of like what would happen if you gave this to a Victorian boy, and it's like you throw a Victorian boy in the middle of a rave, and what happens?
This is what happens when you let one autism come on a podcast.
I'm not sure what just happened, but I loved it. I feel like we should make a skit where there's like a court case or something, and it's just like, here's the jury, it's on a game show, this guy comes running out like the game show host and be like, okay, here's the bad guy, here's the good guy, which one is going to prison? And then you have like a 3-second timer.
Steve Harvey hosts it.
And the jury's like, he's bad, without knowing what he's actually did, like good or bad, and you're like, oh, bad. I feel like that's how society is right now. Like, we can't take in the amount of information required to make adequate.
We don't have the time.
Like, overall, and I'm talking like again, like when you argue like ethics or debates on politics or whatever, like majority of people don't have all the information. So they're just going with whatever they've been susceptible to. And it's usually one-sided.
Yes.
Like if you believe in something and you Google something in that topic, you're probably going to bring out your question or your Google to be more in line
Jeeves.
with. Yeah, like it, if you're like, I don't know, like having a sixth toe better than 5? Chances are the first fucking thing that's going to pop up on Google is, yeah, sure. And then you'll be like, look, I'm right.
That's
but
what
it's
I mean.
like,
I do definitely agree with what you're saying, because I feel like a lot of people now, they don't take time to let their opinions metastasize into their own opinions. They're always looking outward, and they're always Googling to see what the majority wants, or at least the majority that they espouse themselves with. Whereas I believe you're the same way, Melanie. She like.
Why'd you turn into Peter Griffin?
Like with this topic, for example, I thought about it quite a bit. I listened to several videos about it, listened to podcasts about it. My opinion on it hasn't really fluctuated. It's still a resounding no. And when I listen to doctors talk about it, they always, like I said, they always throw around the word compassion. Like, this is the compassionate thing to do. And like I said, to me, that's just bullshit.
So you're like, for myself, like kind of going on that basis, like there's part of me that's like, this is like a Black Mirror episode. And then there's another part of me that's just like, it's probably not a Black Mirror episode.
To me, they're about as compassionate about as much as Chris Watts loved his kids. It's just not compassion to me. Do you guys know who Chris Watts is?
Negative.
Long story short, he killed his kid and stuffed him through a pipe that's like a couple inches in diameter.
So don't look at the man on that cock.
Yes, Mike. Yes, buddy. That's it.
My problem with you saying that, though, is that you assume that all doctors will be like that.
I assume that under our current system...
I had a thought earlier, and it just came back to me, and I'm sorry, I don't want to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
What if... Because things can have consequences that you don't expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if this goes into effect, and it makes people realize that our mental health, or just our healthcare in general, needs to be completely restructured? It needs more help. Yes, it does. But what if people don't realize that, and all of this brings that to light to them?
Yeah.
And then, like, you don't know if it'll have that consequence or not. But what if people start realizing that?
And I mean, that's kind of how things have gone in the past. Like again, I'll go back to the startup, rocky startup, and
Yeah.
then it'll kind of like
Hey.
rebound into like a almost like a dormant state where like, oh, what's new in this? And it's like, oh, nothing. Okay. And then it picks back up and it's like, hey, here's the new 2.0.
I think it's worth a shot.
I feel that it's going to have the opposite effect and make people more pessimistic and seem like the government's given up on them.
I don't want to be a
Bitch.
but I also think that you have a very pessimistic view of a lot of things, and I think that it's coming into effect here as well. He's about to fucking fight. But get your gangly ass over here.
Tell me what I think. Fuck you.
But like, that's my opinion, right? Like, I don't know that for sure because I'm not you.
That book has a big penis. Massive
I gotta
penis.
hit women more often.
Like,
That's exhilarating.
like
Do you,
that's
do you want me to tape it? Okay. No, I mean like tape it, like tuck tape. I can roll.
No.
I can role play, Ryan.
but like, that's my opinion, right? Like, I don't know that for sure because I'm not you.
Yeah.
So
you're
I
not
can't-
me, and you never will be me.
That's true. But like, that's only like my view, right? And like, I could be wrong, and I
don't think you're wrong.
don't. And like, I'm not gonna be like, Ryan's a piece of shit because of this either. Like, you're allowed to have your view of this. I'm not gonna hate you because of this. We're not gonna stop being friends
He was
because
a
of
piece
this.
of shit before this.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a piece of shit then, he's a piece of shit now. But I think
But we love him.
I think overall it's something that is worth giving a chance to.
I'm
Oh, for
not.
sure.
I'm not pessimistic. I know a lot of people seem to think I'm pessimistic. No, it's. Do I have times where I am very pessimistic? Yes, but I don't believe me opposing this necessarily makes me pessimistic because I really try to see the best in people and I want what's best for people, and I do not want to see a person have this procedure done to them when there could have been something else that could have been done. Because as far as we know, this is the only life we have, unless you are spiritual. Me, myself, I'm not a spiritual person, though I'm interested in it. But for them to allow our doctors or government to perform this procedure on somebody who's suffering, just it feels wrong. Like, to me, it just really innately feels disgusting to let someone throw away their life due to some suffering that they could be having when something potentially could be done. Maybe not even done in Canada. Maybe there's something experimental that could be tried, because God knows there's a lot of things that are being tested that we don't know about. I mean, if they're willing to end their lives over what they're going through, why not let them participate in something that may be experimental, that maybe not have been passed through sorry, the acronym's leaving my head right now.
MAID?
No, not MAID.
Oh.
It's who passes things to like the drug administration, all that shit, all these fucking bureaucracies and
I think a lot of people who are going to be against this are going to have the same feeling of like, they're not going to be against it because they don't. I think that people are going to be against it in the way that they think we should give people more of a chance, right? Like, they should be able to live their life because they only have the one life, right?
that we know of.
Yes, but I think, and I really, really, really want to stress this, you're not the person who is making this decision for themselves. So, not singularly for Ryan, like for people in general, I would like to stress that you can view this however you want, but ultimately you're not the person who is experiencing all of these things, who decides to take this route.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to make sure that, I mean, I know I'm not a mental health professional, though I have had interest in going down that career path to help people overcome these types of things. But I don't think I could ever, regardless of the situation, idly stand by and just let a person decide that this is what they want to do for their mental health condition. I could just never espouse myself with that kind of ideology.
In a perfect world, I would say, yeah, the things that, I don't know, I might view as like unethical or wrong, that are like in a gray area. Like in a perfect perspective of Mike's world, like there'd be alternatives, but there aren't. So it's like, okay, my feeling on that really shouldn't be a driving force on like what this person can do with. And like I find like when debating stuff like this, my brain moves faster than my mouth, so like I lag. So when my brain does this, I probably sound fucking stupid.
Because you're fucking munching at the same time.
I know what you mean, because it's like this same thing happens to me. It's like a delay in cognition. At least there's like a detour between my mouth and my brain, and a lot of time I have difficulty articulating thoughts, even if I marinate in the thoughts, like a Mormon having sex for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's
You mean
still
soaking,
marinate. That's what marinating is. Marinating is soaking, Mike. It's still difficult, especially when you're talking about difficult subject matter like this, because this is quite a serious topic, and I do want to make sure that I try to at least articulate it properly. What?
It's so funny to me that he's just sitting there eating fucking donair meat.
Don't care meat, more like it.
Try to keep a straight face.
This is a serious topic, Mike.
This is. So,
Did I say topping instead of topping?
I don't know. I'd like to be Mike's topping.
Fuck.
This is what happens when you put 3 neurodivergents in a basement and give them a microphone. So, there is a quote that I extrapolated from an article that I was reading earlier. I think it was from CTV or Global News, but it was from Dr. David Martell. He's a physician lead for addictions medicine at Nova Scotia Health, who is presenting the framework at the conference that he told Vice News. And I quote, "I don't think it's fair that the government doesn't think it's fair to exclude people from eligibility because of their medical disorder or their suffering is related to mental illness. A subset of that, it's not fair to exclude people from eligibility purely because their mental disorder might either partly or in full be a substance use disorder. It has to do with treating people equally. How about you suck my fucking ass, Timbits, my rimbits, if you will, because it's not about making things. It's not like your child's softball game. Like the other team has more players on their team than your kid's team. It's not. We're talking about people ending their life. It's not about whether you think, well, someone with Parkinson's can kill themselves. Why can't someone with a bad anxiety disorder? You should fuck off. That's, to me, in my opinion, that's ground for him to lose his fucking job.
You reminded me of what I wanted to say, that I wasn't sure if it was appropriate or not. So, here's my disclaimer that this might not be appropriate and therefore it might be edited out.
Trigger warning.
Pew pew.
So, another thing for me about like making it eligible for people with mental health issues is, so I live with knowledge that I wish I didn't have. I would give anything to forget things that I know and have experienced, to the point where it is one of the leading factors in me wanting to kill myself, because I can't stand having this experience anymore. And for a long time, my brain completely blocked it out, and it is all coming back to me now. And that's when, like, all of my depression and stuff started to get really bad. So for somebody like me, I would like this option purely because I'm too much of a pussy to kill myself. And I don't want to keep experiencing these things over and over again.
But that's where more, I guess, experimental treatments come into order. That if this is something that's affecting you to this extent, there are things like MDMA that have shown massive gains for people who have PTSD and stuff. In fact, a lot of police officers and army vets are actively fighting to have MDMA legalized in a lot of states. Excuse me, because of how successful it is in treating things like PTSD. And these are things in Canada that have seemingly taken a backseat in the conversation while people fixate more on MAID itself, because they're not talking about some of the contingencies that could be taken, opposed to just how sensational the sound of MAID is. It doesn't make it like this topic of MAID is a very sensational headline, whereas the whole 24-hour news cycle, the way that functions is that some of these more holistic approaches have fallen in the background when people predominantly talk about, well, hey, you can just fucking kill yourself. But I do believe that there's so much more that can be done before we start looking at MAID as a possibility.
I know when I say that, it sounds like it's purely like strictly PTSD stuff. Yes, in part it is. It has also affected other things that shouldn't be related, that you can't block out, that are like day-to-day things that you would need to go to like extensive therapy for that might not even fix it.
Have you tried those options?
Yes, I have
though?
gone to therapy for this.
Well, gone to therapy and doing therapy are two different things, because I was someone who was very much a skeptic of therapy, but
I am too.
After a while, I believe just being able to talk about it is a huge first step. That's what helps me anyway. I mean, I'm typically more reticent with my opinions and how I feel about things, and that's part of what makes a podcast a challenge, but it's a formidable challenge that I want to tackle, and I believe Mike feels the same way, that you want to be able to speak about things that might make you uncomfortable, make other people uncomfortable. But a lot of that is the first step to some sense of recovery, is being able to openly talk about it, candidly talk about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, any topic you should be able to talk about, like, openly talk about any topic without being like ridiculed or.
Can you put the mic closer to
Okay,
your
that's
mouth?
what a racist would say.
Okay, so Mike's a racist. We've just
Michael is racist.
Like,
You're like realizing what you had said now.
Wait, what?
You're like just coming to the realization of what you said.
No. I was gonna get at like, oh, like number one horse, like, fuck that horse.
What?
Like a race. I don't know. See,
what kind of horse race?
Which one of you is drunk? Because I thought it was Ryan.
Oopsie.
But I'm thinking it's you.
now that goes back to like brain going faster than
We called you racist, and you started talking about going to the races.
I'm not a racist. I fucked a horse.
I'm not a racist. I've been to the horse races once or twice in my life.
I consider myself a connoisseur of the Kentucky Derby.
So I totally missed something. What did I say?
I can't get over connoisseur of the Kentucky Derby. You said that you think people should be able to talk about whatever topic they want without facing ridicule.
No. Well, like,
and I know which context you meant that in.
Okay, yeah. No.
But the way that you said it was so open that you could be like, yeah, I think Nazis should be allowed to talk about being a Nazi without being ridiculed for being a Nazi.
Okay, that's not what I meant.
And And I would like that edited to show that Mike is a Nazi.
If you guys actually don't know this, Mike keeps a copy of Mein Kampf underneath his cushion.
He sleeps.
He calls it
He
Mike
puts it-
Kampf.
Right underneath the Bible.
You bring it with you everywhere you go so that you could be with it at all times.
Oh, shit. So, I'm going to pose some questions to you, Melanie, to see if I
Why
can...
only me?
Oh, God.
Because you're the one who's my main opponent on this. Mike is kind of ambivalent
Oh
because
God,
his brain
this is
kind of
debate
flip-flops.
club.
No, I'm just...
I think his brain ain't working anymore.
I got some questions here. I'm going to ask you with my voice and see if you like it, and you're going to respond with your voice.
Okay.
But
We might get answers.
before I get into these questions, which we'll just do kind of briefly, just kind of, Mike, where do you feel like you stand right now? Are you just kind of like you
Oh,
don't...
bud.
Oh, bud.
Oh, buddy guy. I stand by, like, this is way too complicated of a topic to be
It
like,
is.
this
It
is
is.
good, this is bad. It's like, you can't simplify shit like this, especially into a one-off discussion.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that's going to take like years, if not decades, to
Yes.
figure out and perfect. But like,
Where my area concern is people slipping through the cracks who shouldn't have gotten this done.
probably. But there's also going to be people who need this, who deserve this, in terms of like, that's their only way out, and that's their only way to peace. So it's like,
Mike, see, if you're not going to agree with me, the only way out for you is that door, and you should use it right now.
You should have told him to go at the window.
Yeah, don't
Brian?
act that window's kind of broken.
do you want me to feed you more meat?
Yeah, I do.
Can you guys stop? We're trying to
Can
have
you
a
mind
serious-
your business?
We're trying to have a serious discussion. And I don't need your racist ass procreating.
So,
I watch NASCAR. I'm sorry.
I watch NASCAR. I can't be racist.
Yeah.
so getting into at least going over some of the points why I oppose it, I'm going to kind of condense it and then kind of ask you these questions, just go almost kind of like a TLDR for people who want to skip our neurodivergent tangents. So one of my biggest gripes is that one of the prerequisites for qualifying for MAID is being capable of making healthcare decisions for yourself, and mental illness constitutes not being in the right state of mind. So how can someone who's not in the right state of mind make that decision?
I think that it's really shitty to say that somebody who experiences mental health issues isn't in the right state of mind to make decisions for themselves.
Okay.
Like, you're essentially saying that I currently am not in the right state of mind
That's exactly
to
what
make
I'm saying.
decisions for
No,
myself,
you're not.
right?
You're not.
Like, you're saying that
Right.
for something simple, like, you're saying I'm not in the right state of mind to decide that I'm gonna go to the store, essentially.
not.
Like, yeah, thanks.
No, I'm just
But
I'm kidding.
like, for me, I don't think that's appropriate to say. I think there's an extent where somebody can get to the point where they're not, but I don't think having it so broad is appropriate.
That's actually a very excellent explanation of that. And
Yeah,
why-
it's called being smart sometimes,
why
bitch.
I still don't agree. I do appreciate that perspective. Next question. This is one I'd like Mike's input on as well. even if Mr. 100% positive mental health over there.
Oh, bud. Oh, bud. There's like, it's like 100, and then there's like negative 100.
Like I said, Mike's the king of nihilism when he's in the right mood. And it's funny.
It's situational.
So we have no death penalty for the most egregious criminals, but we essentially are willing to kill those in the time they need the most help. What's your opinion on that?
I think, well, that's the thing, right? Like, you're saying that they're not getting any help, which they are. They're being offered resources first before being killed, basically. They are being given
Murdered.
Yeah, they are being given resources. They are still being given resources to get help. Though, like, saying that implies that they didn't have an option. They still have an option in all of this.
I feel like that's where you and I are kind of getting the most unsexy friction right now. Is you I guess what you're saying is I'm a bit more pessimistic, but the way I view our mental health system is with a heavy degree of nihilism, and I do believe a lot of doctors. I do believe that a lot of doctors right now are apathetic, and the care patients are getting has dramatically decreased in effectiveness, and I do believe that a lot of patients are very unsatisfied with the current state of our healthcare, and I do believe that right now the patients are not the number one priority. At least our healthcare system likes to say they are, but they say they are ostensibly, but in reality, they are more about saving money and penny pinching. That's all our healthcare system cares about. And it's fucking depressing. It's nihilistic, but it's the truth. They will not invest in something if it's going to cost them too much money, regardless of patient care.
I don't think our healthcare is in a good place.
Right.
I don't think our mental health care is in a good place.
At all. It's barely in a place.
But it's present. There are people out there who do give a shit. Can you stop?
What?
Take you out for one fucking piece of meat and now you're off the walls. You went from being asleep to being everywhere.
The alcohol, like the sugars is spiking, and then the caffeine kicks in.
Yeah.
I really shouldn't have downed that vodka.
But I think like there are people there who care. There are resources there that will help.
They're just few and far between. And the ones that are there are stressed.
I only just had this thought now. You want these people to seek alternatives before considering MAID as an option. If you are so certain that the resources that MAID offer is not going to help, what resources are you talking about that they can access outside of MAID? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's the exact same thing. You're asking them to go to the exact same thing. You're asking them to seek help from the healthcare system. The same healthcare system that they would be getting help from through MAID. And somehow you're thinking that one of them will let them down and the other one won't, purely because one of them has the option of death included.
Where I kind of stand on that is a big problem with our healthcare in general, not just our mental health care, is that a lot of the time you need to take your own health into your own hands. And which is a bit more feasible when it comes to your overall physical health. Because like I've known people personally who have to go in and literally they need to get all their file, they need to go through their file, they need to play internet physician and try to figure out what's wrong and then go to their doctor and be like, I need to get tested for this, and this. It's fucked. And that's kind of where I'm standing on, like, we're nowhere as close to the position to allow people to facilitate this sort of thing. You know,
no, I get that. It's just, for me, you're saying that people shouldn't ever think of this as an option, but they should seek help. But
if people are in that mindset, they're going to be less able to seek the help that they need, which is unfortunate.
So, if anything, MAID would be helpful because it's giving those people that wouldn't be able to seek the help themselves, it's giving them the options presented straight to them. They don't have to go searching for them.
That's not options.
Hold on. Just wait a fucking second. If anything, MAID is giving people their options for, like, and by options I mean like things to help them get through what they're going through without killing themselves. Whether that be like counseling, things like that. I'm just using it in a broad term because I'm not looking at one specific illness or anything like that. But they are, if anything, just giving their options straight to them instead of the person having to actively go through a bunch of hoops to get it
And
themselves.
that's the key word right there you just said, is a bunch of hoops, because people have to go through so much fucking hoops in this country.
Yes.
It's like they're playing Superman 64, the amount of fucking hoops they got to fly through. Because the problem with mental health care, and this exposes how emotionally destitute people feel after a while, how apathetic you start to feel, is because you have to go to your doctor. You try 400 different types of, I know I'm being hyperbolic, types of medication. They put you on this type of antidepressant, then it's like Wellbutrin, then it's Effexor, and then it's citalopram, Cipralex. You're put on all these different things, and you spend years jumping between these different things. To me, that there needs to be more research, and especially in terms of psychedelics. I'm a huge proponent of psychedelics when it comes to mental health treatment. Things like ketamine, and I do think Canada's on the right track for that. Like I said earlier, I will give them kudos for that. But it's not enough. That's where things like MDMA, ayahuasca, psilocybin, all these things need to be looked at in greater detail. But there's just not the research right now, and we can fucking thank Nixon for that. But I don't know, Mike.
Wait, hold on. Before I forget about this, on the topic that you just brought up, you have to remember that doctors are still just people, right?
Which means they're just as fallible.
They only know what they know. And you may be put on different medications, but you're also a human body that we don't fully understand how the brain works. And that's a very complex thing to understand. You're a piece of meat trying to understand a piece of meat.
Oh, God.
And you have to realize that people react to things differently. So one person might do great on a medication, and it might completely not work for you. And your doctor is giving you these different medications because you're not reacting how they expected, and so they're searching for a fix for you. They're not doing it because they're like, well, I'll just throw another one at him, right? They're trying to help you, and I'm not blaming you for it not working, because obviously you're not making that decision. It's just your body isn't reacting how they expected it to, and they're trying to find something for you.
A big problem as well is that I listened to a podcast about it, and but if we look at the two different sides of health, of course, you got regular medicine and physiological health, and then you got mental health. And there's a lot of dissonance between these two fields of practice, and very rarely those two things meet in the middle. I mean, I know I'll speak from my personal experience that when I was seeing my psychologist, there was no communication between her and my doctor, even though she kind of tried, because they're just run too thin. And then my doctor even said, if you want to go see a psychiatrist, it's going to be close to a year's wait for me to get in to see a psychiatrist, which I didn't. My mental health isn't at the point where I feel like I really need to do that personally, so I just kind of told her, I'm like, he recommended I just keep speaking to you. At least that's my case, but it's just kind of just using that to bolster my point of just that our mental health system and our general health system, these two different sides are not communicating, which makes it even more unfeasible for something like MAID to exist, because if these two different parties are going to communicate, how can you decide to end someone's life?
I have two things to say to that.
That means
the first one is mental health has not been something that has been taken seriously for a long time, and it's been fairly recent that people have recognized it as a thing. And even then, a lot of people don't recognize it. You're depressed, just stop doing it, right?
Yeah, a lot of people in their 50s and stuff especially are in denial about their mental health. Mother.
Second thing is, I know your doctor, and he's full of shit. All right? So me and Ryan, growing up, I had the same doctor that Ryan has. I know this man is full of shit. I'll say it. He says that to you, And you know what? He just assumes you'll drop it because he's done the exact same thing to my family. He says, there's a wait. And then he assumes that he won't even send out the referral
my
because there's
psychologist
a
was
wait.
pissed.
Because there is a wait. But if he never sends that referral, it's never going to fucking get there. So you wait a year or you wait forever, right? I will not take anything from this man. Not you, but your doctor. I don't think he should ever be... I don't think anything he says should ever be valid in terms of healthcare. After working in the healthcare system for, I don't know how many years it's been now. I'm not about to learn how to count. But
For him,
I think that man is full of shit.
Damn.
I have met many
Savage.
doctors. I have worked with many doctors. That man is full of shit, and he should not be compared. He should not be a point that you base anything off of.
I'm not basing sure, that's kind of who I have
Yes.
as a reference point currently, because like my own personal anecdotes, of course, are going to reflect on my experiences with him. But I just noticed this in general, being around doctors a lot, just how apathetic and the compassion that they put on is very synthetic. But,
Also, please give me this one thing.
Okay.
I also saw a psychologist. They do send your reports to your doctor. They're supposed to.
I don't know if she has.
I've seen a psychologist. I've also seen therapists. They send the reports back to my doctor. And that's what they're supposed to do. Because your doctor is supposed to be kept in the loop on this.
Which
I don't know why yours isn't, and I have a strong suspicion it's purely because of who he is. I think if you had any other doctor, the two things would be connected. Now we can talk to Michael.
Yes, let's switch it over to Mike. So the initial question...
Here I've just been like fucking this up this whole podcast. And, hey, yeah, bring it back to Mike. what stupid shit's going on?
Whenever it gets too heated, we just go over to you.
Yeah, whatever things, you just talk about fucking a horse again.
Yeah, like races.
So the initial question was, we have no death penalty in Canada for the most egregious criminals.
God, I forgot.
But yeah, exactly. You got so, but we're essentially willing to kill those.
I had
in
that
the time
thought
that
driving here
that they need. We kill the most vulnerable in the time they need the most help. Do you think that's an unfair comparison to make, or do you think that there's more nuance to that as it might appear?
So on the drive here,
races,
races, horses, fucking horses. No, on the drive here, I actually like had that thought, like, we got rid of the death penalty and lethal injection for criminals, and then we're like, oh, what just happened? I heard a noise.
Your Windows is updated.
Okay, finish that thought. Then we have to change the camera battery.
Okay. Really? Fuck.
Yes.
Okay. So we got rid of the lethal injection for criminals, and then we're like, but here, anyone else can take this. It's like, wait a second, what the fuck? Like, why aren't we giving criminals this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, not just criminals, the most heinous of criminals.
Like, it's kind of, it doesn't really make doesn't make much sense, but at the same time, it's like, again, if people want to kill themselves.
Yes, that's kind of like the dichotomy I was looking at when I was kind of thinking about it in my head. That kind of infuriated me more on the topic. Like, why are we keeping people around that are actively causing trauma that would lead to people using MAID as a service? Like, why are we keeping around people who rape people and let out people who fucking assault children? Like, we're letting these people they let them out even if they're at high risk of reoffending. They let these people back on the fucking streets.
Yeah.
They don't want to kill him. He'll send me in with the lethal injection. I'll do it.
It's a head scratcher. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Like,
now, I'm a huge proponent of I do believe people can change, and I do believe people change, and I believe people are changing all the time. But when you look at people, some of those heinous criminals on the planet, especially in Canada, like let's use Luca Magnotta as an example. Are you guys familiar with Luca Magnotta?
I had the same thought in my head driving here. Like,
it sounds familiar, but I don't know who it is.
Have you ever heard of One Guy, One Ice Pick?
No. That sounds like a lobotomy term.
Basically, he got a guy over to his house.
Study buddy.
Study buddy. He raped him on
So
camera,
Montreal, I think.
and mid-raping him, he took an ice pick and, well, did exactly what you'd think with it, and then posted it online.
He decapitated him, cannibalized him, raped him, all that stuff. Live streaming. And then, pretty sure he just, what was it?
Yeah, he's getting out.
Couple years ago, he went to prison.
He's getting out soon. I can't remember the exact date. This is why we need like a fact checker here.
He's getting out?
Yeah, he's getting out.
What?
Yes.
Didn't they just like sentence him like 4 years ago?
No, this was a little while ago now. He's got 25 years, but that's life in prison in Canada is 25 years. So regardless, he could get paroled earlier. Could be good behavior.
I think that the prison system is messed up.
Yeah, it's pretty far.
I know we keep getting. I kind of want to add this. I know we keep getting sidetracked, but that just kind of goes to show how nuanced and complicated this topic is, because you can't talk about just getting made without then talking about, well, the mental health system, and then the prison system, and then what about society in general, and
there's so many factors.
And what about these people who have been admonished their whole lives, and these people? It's like it's so fucking complicated. So I kind of understand Mike's centrist stance on it, whereas I don't really know how to explain it, except I just feel it inside like this is not a prudent move to make.
Like, even things that I disagree with, like I'm not 100%. I might say that I'm 100% against something, but in reality, it's just like I'm just not educated enough, probably. So it's like I leave leeway to be like, okay, if this person says something that contradicts what I'm currently thinking, and it makes sense, that's like, oh, well, maybe
he was sentenced in
on something.
2014.
Yeah,
and he's eligible for parole in 25 years. So he's not getting out. He's only eligible for parole after 25 years.
He's in there for a while. Yeah.
He can get in.
The fact that they only gave him 25 years, though, when there's definitive proof, because they also the jury went to trial for days.
Yeah.
Like, how do you have to how does it take days to decide on something like
Canada is fucked.
Well, that's on the jury, right? Like, the jury can't come to a consensus. How do you not come to a consensus on that, though?
Now, this happened in, like, what, 2011, 2012?
Probably around
then.
Yeah, so, just, it took 4 or 5 years just to get to that point?
Yeah.
So it's like, fuck, it's going to be a long, drawn-out process.
If we look at the guy who committed the Greyhound murder, when he decapitated that guy on the Greyhound bus, he spent 5 years. That's it. Yeah. Then they gave him a new identity and everything. So, and when his doctors were questioned about it, I can't remember if it was doctors or it was people responsible for him. Their response was, well, as long as he takes his medication, he'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time,
thank God!
That's not an exclusively Canadian issue where the people are getting sentenced to short sentences or nothing at all. Because it happens in America. Do you remember fucking... God, I don't remember his last name. Brock
Turner.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we make jokes about him all the time.
The guy who
piece of shit
got drunk. No, he wasn't drunk. A girl got drunk. He raped her in an alleyway, and then they let him off because they said it would ruin his future.
Yeah, Melanie, it was only a few minutes of action, okay? Are you really going to let it destroy this young man's life?
It's so stupid to say that, it'll ruin this man's life. Yeah, it will, because
I hope it does.
He did something fucking awful.
And that's why I fucking love Philip DeFranco, because he created BrockTurnerRapist.com. I'm serious. So whatever you yeah. I wonder if that still exists.
It's a problem everywhere, basically. It's not exclusively a Canadian problem, but it is a problem.
Yeah.
Very much so, indeed.
Also, I don't think you should kill those people. I think you should let them rot in a prison cell. I think they should just have to sit there and live through it. because that is
Yes.
worse than being turned into nothing.
Yeah, I suppose. Death is kind of the easy way out, isn't it? But a lot of these people, they lack the empathy to really give a shit about what they did. So I guess the only way to punish them is just take away whatever gives them happiness, I suppose.
No.
Whatever
Not to
that may
mention they
be.
get the shit beat out of them in prison.
No, to just play the devil's advocate here for a second.
Yeah.
You did say that you believe that people can change. Do you
Yeah, that's where I was
believe
going with.
that-
I do believe that some people
Yeah.
are innately
Inadequate,
monsters,
yeah.
and they have no chance of reform. I do believe there are individuals like that out there, and while I can't remember their names explicitly, like there was one where a guy like would throw shit around his cell. He ate his fucking the guy who was in the cell with him, his cellmate.
Oh, I heard
Like
about
he
this
did.
guy.
Yeah.
He what else? He fucking like I think he like ripped his dick off too, cut his dick off. I mean, what do you do? I mean, at that point, and of course you have people like Luca Magnotta, but I do believe the vast contingent of people can change because everybody is going to make some pretty heinous mistakes in their lives, whether you mean to or not. And this whole fallacy of people that are infallible and they get on this train of virtue to make them seem like they're these self-righteous individuals. No, you're just an indignant idiot.
Now, just to kind of get back, or to get to the point that I'm attempting to make, I guess, if my brain can
Races.
bring it out. Horses. You have a percentage. Well, we'll just call it a percentage of individuals that you. It's safe to say that you would say that they cannot be changed.
Yes.
So, and in terms of like global, that number is probably high in terms of like population. Like we're not talking about like 4 or 5 people that you think cannot change. You're probably talking about 100,000, if not more, out of the whole population. Now, would you, if you were to take that into consideration and then apply it to other things, maybe that can also apply to mental health. Maybe some people cannot get help, like alternative help, and that their only option is to die. So it's like, yeah, you could throw out a billion options or billion tests, but none of them will work because they've already it's basically like trying to tell someone who believes in a god that their god doesn't exist. Like they're not going to crack. There are outliers that will crack, but for the general, or for the majority of those people, they're not going to crack. Like they're going to be like, you could say anything and they'll be like, no. This is what I believe.
You can live with something for so long,
Yeah.
and it becomes so ingrained in you as a person,
Yeah.
that it's like trying to take me outside and saying, yeah, the sky's yellow when it's very clearly blue, and trying to convince me that it's yellow.
It's exactly why people can strap bombs to their themselves and walk into a public area and blow themselves
they're
up.
doing that for their deity, they believe.
Yes.
Or,
but it's so ingrained that you can't, like, if someone were to stop
taught,
them,
those things can be
Yes.
untaught.
everything's taught though.
You can try, but there gets to a point where you can't unlearn it anymore.
Yeah.
It stays with you forever, and you can't can't take it out of you.
Those experiences will always be a part of you, but it gets to a point where you have to learn to let them not define you.
Oh yeah.
It's not a matter of telling you that the sky is blue when you think it's yellow. It's a matter of teaching you how to live with the fact that the sky might be a different color.
You can say teaching somebody to live with these things, but for some people, they'll never get to that point.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained in them as a person that they will never get past it.
It's basically like trying to tell a dog not to be a dog. It's like a dog is a
Like
dog.
some
because-
people can do it, and for some people it's so prevalent in their life, it's so traumatic for them that you will never be able to to tell them otherwise.
I don't think so.
As much as they would like to believe it, and as much as they would like to believe it, and as much as they would like to get past it, for some people, it'll never happen.
It's all about finding something that they want to live for and finding their sense of purpose.
Okay, but
something that's I mean, of course, if they feel like they don't have a purpose and they're not finding anything to add to the happiness in their life, they are going to ruminate on that issue and they are going to obsess over it and let it define them.
Okay, but then to go against that,
You could just fucking agree with me. That'd be nice.
No, I can find things in life that make me happy and make me want to live, but it doesn't change the fact that I still would very much like to kill myself, right? Like, there are things that can be nice and there are things that I can enjoy, but ultimately that is still looming in the back of my mind all the time, and it doesn't outweigh those things because they're not equal.
But have you tried some of the alternative? What? Did you think I was going to say, but have you tried
Melanie,
MAID?
Have you tried, have you not tried, like, cheese stuffed pizza?
It really sounded like you were going to say, okay, well, have you tried being happy?
Have you just, like tried really hard? And
Like,
really...
I think that's the point. I think that's the point we're getting stuck on, is that...
You just won't agree with me.
No, is that you believe in people's capacity to change.
Yes, because people are the arbiters of their own destiny.
Yes, I don't disagree with you. People can change. People can do whatever. But I think the point that we're coming to is you believe that so strongly that you don't realize that there are some things that you cannot move past. There are some obstacles that are just there and they won't go away.
I mean, I believe just about any obstacle can be overcome if you have the right support system, which some people need more support than others. I mean, it all depends on... So, I mean, it varies from person to person, but I do believe the one thing that's in common is everybody possesses the power to overcome those things, regardless of how traumatic they may have been. I mean, I've heard some stories of some truly horrific things, and then people found a way because they thought to themselves that this was the end. They wouldn't be able to do anything more, but through the right treatment and the right help, they were able to, I don't want to use the words move past it, because obviously that's always going to be there, but they found a way to live with it and turn it into something more positive.
I love how positive you're trying to be.
I could sit here and go back and forth with you all day on this, but ultimately it would just be us saying the exact same thing.
Okay, I think, just from what I'm seeing, I think you're both, like, being positive, like, trying to be positive about, like, this whole thing.
No, he's a pessimist.
I'm not a pet.
No, he's almost being, like, extreme pro-life here. And...
Oh, God, that was enough. So part of this conversation that we were having through text, he started to say that he was also incredibly pro-life, and it blew my fucking mind because I never envisioned Ryan to be like that. And then he was like, yeah, I was just fucking messing with you. And I was in the parking lot of a Canadian Tire screaming at my mom over this. You had flipped my fucking world upside down.
My girlfriend almost left me because of it.
She messaged me and said, I don't fucking understand what's happening. This is not the man I know.
Because they like to frame me as, like, this ultra-conservative sometimes when it couldn't be further from the truth. But they like to tease me about it, nonetheless.
But we don't think you're ultra-conservative. It's just you basically, like, fucking took me and flipped me over. I was like, what the fuck is happening?
So just to kind of finish what I was going into,
yeah, Mike, hurry up.
Everyone's brain composition is different.
Yes.
Everyone's, the chemicals the structure, the neurons, everything. No two brains are the same. So the way I see, like, when it comes to psychology of like individuals, is that no two people are ever going to be the same. And that's why and I'll just use war as an example.
What
You
is a
have
good
people who run at the bullets. You have people who run away from the bullets. You have people who hide from the bullets. And then you have people who literally, they're no longer them, because like whatever went off in their brain, whatever thought they had, they just fucking go into hysteria and they do not come back from that. So it's like, you like just using those as examples, and then you apply it to mental health, and we'll say MAID or whatever issue you're debating. You have to look at it as everyone's brain chemistry isn't going to be the same. So the capacity to handle, to process, and to get over things or to fix things, you may be a savant at changing your life around, and like, fuck, you could have no limbs, you could just be a head, like, and you could get over it and
Yeah, I mean,
do
like,
something wonderful. But there's also going to be people who do not have that capacity because their brains are not wired or have the function to get past it.
and that's what I mean. I think we have a fundamental, we lack a fundamental understanding of how the human brain works in relation to trauma. Like what traumatizes me might not traumatize Mike or Melanie,
Or it could
And
drive
that's-
someone insane.
and that's kind of like my biggest problem with incorporating mental health into this. I mean, we understand physiological health way better than mental health, and there's just too many unknowns. And I know it might sound kind of grim, but this is, if someone's really at that point when it comes to mental health, I know that there has to be some experimental treatments you could try on people, regardless of how unethical they may seem. And I know I'm calling MAID and unethical, but I do believe that there's treatments out there that could be tried to assist people if instead of just killing them.
But you're also assuming nobody's tried these things.
I
bet
Definitely.
you some people have given these things a try.
maybe so, but referring back to what Mike said, it's like, well, in a previous podcast when we talked about the guy in the last iron lung. I mean, that motherfucker's a lawyer and he's in a giant metal condom his whole life.
Yeah. But
And
like,
he's like optimistic and he's happy.
Yeah.
but think about this. If that was me, I would be fucking dead. I would have killed myself. I wouldn't live like that.
Thing is, he would qualify for MAID.
That's what Mike was talking about, the difference in people.
Yeah.
He can do it. He can still enjoy his life. Me, I wouldn't be able to fucking do it.
But at the same time, he doesn't know any other life.
Yeah.
I mean, he can watch people doing whatever, but he personally, I mean, this
Well,
is
he
what
only
he's
got put in the
acclimated
iron
to.
lung at the age of 7. So he did have 7 years where he was able to go and do things. He was able to get up. He was able, like, that would have still caused him problems.
Oh, absolutely.
Initially. And he was able to get past that. Good for him.
And
I can't fucking do that.
we're also assuming that he didn't have the thought of like, oh, I could end it now.
Yeah.
Like he might, who knows? He might.
We
might
also
think that,
don't
yeah.
know. We don't know what he's like
And I
other than what they showed, right?
think
but-
like if somebody is seriously going in to get assistance in death, like if they get turned down, you're gonna find them in a river or in a bed, like overdue, like an OD or something like that. Like if someone wants to kill themselves, no one on this planet is gonna stop them from doing that.
That's what I mean, and that's what I mean when I say like that people are tenacious, and if they really want to get past these safeguards that are put into place, people will find a way.
Yeah, but I mean, would you, like, kind of going back to the beginning of the podcast, like I would like if I knew someone in my family or a friend or say I have a roommate and they're like, hey Mike, I'm gonna, like, I want to off myself. Be like, holy shit, okay, we get past the talking, the grievances or whatever. Okay, they go in. I would rather like not find them on the floor like ODing or with their brains splattered or hung from the ceiling or whatever way they go about it. I would rather not take that trauma. And I doubt that anyone else would want to see that trauma of like finding someone dead, especially if they know them personally. Rather go through the process of like, okay, they want to die. We'll take them through this month-long process and they can die peacefully.
I
So
feel
it's
like you guys are ganging up on me right now.
Yeah, I was
No,
about
no,
to say,
no,
I
just-
was about
okay.
to say I won this argument because I got Mike.
Well, here's and this is where I go back to like like I'm neither for nor against things. Like that's part of my brain thinks that way, but then the other part can say like you were talking about like depression. People can fix depression depending on and I believe this for a while, and I'm still like it's a strong belief in myself, mainly because I've also experienced it. Like you go through highs and lows in your life, and if you are in a low and you don't do anything to get yourself out of that low, you're going to keep going low. Like, oh, I've hit rock bottom. No, you haven't. Like wait a moment and you'll keep going down if you don't fix your current situation.
That is...
But if you try to if you try to better yourself or do something proactive to get yourself out of whatever fucking environment that you've put yourself in or that has been placed upon you, get yourself out of that situation and see what happens. Like I agree with Melanie, but I also agree with Ryan. Like there are options that you have not tried. There will always be options that you've not tried.
Exactly.
Therefore, Ryan is right on that notion, but also the options that are available may not work. So Melanie's also right that it doesn't matter what you throw at someone in terms of options if they want to die, and if whatever reasoning they have is so ingrained and that's what they believe, they're going to die with help or without help.
I would like to say that there isn't a right or wrong
Yes.
in this conversation.
Yes, exactly.
One of us is not going to come out of this right, and one of us is not going to come out of this wrong.
But we're all going to come.
Because it's too complex for that.
Yes.
It is a huge gray area.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that I don't see where you're coming from, because I do. I understand where you're coming from. It's just I think about things differently than you. Yeah. And I don't think me and you will ever agree on this. And that's why I don't like debating, because I don't like being in the position where you debate with somebody and then you don't come out with the same opinion. That bothers me greatly. But like,
well, I think that's kind of what a lot of debates are about, and in the rare circumstance you will kind of alter someone's opinion on it. But those excellent points, those are both excellent points, especially the way Mike was able to articulate himself.
He only fucking praises you.
I was moving on to you next.
You realize in the 2 hours that we've been here, that was the only time that I've said something smart.
No, I talked about the horse race.
I saw everything, like the pieces just sliding into place.
I was in the moment.
We got to take a brief break and replace the camera battery, so we'll be back at you in a moment. Okay, so moving on from what we were just talking about earlier, I got 2 more questions to ask you guys, and then we can kind of move down to what a big concern relating this, in at least relative to mental illness in MAID, is something that people have been kind of debating in the news. So, first question: what about doctor shopping? So, say Mike goes to a doctor, and the doctor says, "No, I don't think you qualify." What's going to stop him from going to doctor until he gets the response that he wants?
See, this is where I also don't trust certain systems in place because people's biases. And it goes back to what you said about doctors just being human. Like, you cannot program people to be a certain way if they believe in something. So if someone believes that assisted suicide is okay, then they're going to try to help people with assisted suicide. If people believe that giving hormones to kids is okay, they're going to give hormones to kids. Like it's you're going into human ethics and just personal beliefs, and you cannot, like, who's to say what's right or wrong? And I know there's like ethics committees and shit like that, but it's just like,
Yeah, they're all...
you're taking such a small population of the fucking planet, 8 billion people, and you're allowing, it's the equivalent
Actually,
of
that's a good point, because the next question I'm going to ask you basically includes what you're talking about.
yeah, it's the equivalent of leadership roles in nations. Like you're allowing a couple thousand people to dictate what happens to 8 billion people. Like, the majority of the fucking population doesn't give a shit about like border friction or
what woke culture is, and that, like,
or like any
most people
of the
don't
conflicts that are portrayed in the media that makes people fucking hate each other. Nobody majority of the population does not give a fucking shit about these topics. Like racism. Like we've been joking about me, hey, racism. Like majority of the world, like global population, doesn't give a fuck what color you are, what religion you are, what you think, what you believe, what language you speak. They are just trying to get by and live the best life that they can, like everyone else. So it's like, why? Like, how do you determine what's right or wrong, who leads, who follows? Like, we're fucking people. We don't know what the fuck we're doing.
What about you, Melanie?
First off, either my headset is too loud or Mike's mic is too loud.
Probably a bit of the both. I mean, I noticed the difference in this one too.
We are tailored to be in separate places.
What do you mean? We've been here this whole time.
Yeah, you're right.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I saw you when you said Mike, and I saw you look at me first, and then look at him.
Aw, he misses me there.
Yeah, something just feels off. I almost feel like I went into like a different universe.
Funny.
I mean, your chair's warmer than mine.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Melanie's in heat.
Yeah.
I mean, she is warm.
Oh God.
I think doctor shopping is okay.
Really? So if
Yes, because the people who are gonna go through the trouble of doctor shopping are people who really want this. Who are
you don't see that as a problem?
No, because if that's what you want, if that's really what you want for yourself, which is what brings you to make this decision in the first place.
Okay, if I really want to go out
Hold on.
stab Mike
Can
in the
I
throat.
finish what I'm saying?
No.
My consent.
But like if that is truly what you want with your life, if you truly think that that is what you want, then you should be allowed to make that decision for yourself. It's the same as like making any other decision, really. If that's really what you want and you go through all of it and you don't change your mind and you are so set. This is excluding like any outside peer pressure, right? Let's say this is a person making the decision for themselves and they are in the right mind to make this decision, okay? Let's just assume that.
But then we have to assume that they're not in the right mind if they're making that decision.
Hold on. Let's assume that they are in the right mind to make their own decisions. And this is truly what they want. Then why are we allowed to tell them otherwise?
Because then we kind of get in the discussion what the right state of mind is, because if someone's in that state of mind where they want to commit suicide, that doesn't sound like the right state of mind.
But it can be.
Can
That's
it?
the thing. You're allowed to make that decision for
It
yourself.
depends, I guess, on the pliable meaning of
If-
right state of mind.
Yeah. If you are somebody who genuinely does not want to be alive anymore, if that's something that you genuinely do not want to do, and you've gone through this entire process, they haven't swayed you, why are we allowed to make the decision for another person on how to live their life?
Because that's what governments do anyway.
I think we're putting too much. I think the problem is everybody is scared of death because they don't know what's after.
Well, yeah,
and
that's
we're
why that's
focusing. Well, hold on, we're focusing so heavily on that. We don't know what's after it, and maybe being in nothingness is what people would like, right? Like, you're not that person, so you shouldn't be allowed to tell them. You can help them along the way to see if that's truly what they want. But if in the end they decide, I just would like to stop existing, that's truly what I want, why should I be allowed to say no? I would like it if you still lived.
And that's the thing, like, you can't tell someone that. Like, or, okay, you can tell someone that.
I can live my own life, and they can live theirs.
What you're saying, though, is, like, we have to follow laws. We're always under the influence of some greater power, be it our government or be it anything, is always going to influence our decisions. And when we get into the discussion of the right state of mind, if you want to commit suicide and you want to end your life, that is not the right state of mind. Unless, the term right state of mind is more ambiguous than...
So you genuinely believe that me, right now, as who I am, is not in the right state of mind. Because that's what you're saying.
God damn. Oh.
I don't...
Mike, tell me more about the races.
So, you can tell someone no, and they're still going to do it.
I do believe that if that's how you feel, no, you're not in the right state of mind.
But...
So you're going to look at me and say that?
You're not in the right state of mind.
Okay.
I mean, I know I'm not in the right state of mind.
I don't think I'm ever going to sway you on that. I think that's something that you firmly believe in. And that's fine. But you also have to say that other people can believe what they want.
Well, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just believe that if people are in that mindset, there needs to be some fundamental change that needs to happen in their life, because I do believe life can be beautiful. And as far as we know, it's the only one.
But that's the thing.
No.
It can be beautiful. And like I said earlier, you can find things that you like. But it's not a one-to-one. There are going to be things that outweigh other things.
I also would like to say that I feel like, or my understanding of just how suicide rates are skyrocketing and continuously getting steeper in the amount of people committing suicide goes in kind of tandem with just lack of fucking purpose.
Yes, a lot of people are lacking purpose right now because people don't know what to do with their lives. People are so busy living vicariously that they're not focusing on their own life story.
But it's also like things are changing at such a rate that, like, for myself, I used to be like really into technology, really into sciences, etc. And I still am for the most part, but I find lately I can't take in the information because there's so fucking much of it. And it's just you cannot process what is happening in the world because it's just going at such a rate that it's like, well, fuck, like, okay, I could learn this today and it'll be different in 2 years. Like a lot of the stuff that we learned back, like I graduated in 2007, and a lot of the stuff that we learned in school
is obsolete.
It's not being taught anymore. It's like there's courses that are contradicting half the shit that we've learned. Like science, like our science classes are probably irrelevant. Like there might be a few things that might still be considered relevant, but a lot of things have changed. And it's just like, well, fuck. Like if I were to go back into like biotech, I'd probably be a fucking idiot. Like I'd literally have to relearn grade 7 biology because it's just it's everything's evolving and we're learning new things, and things that we knew before weren't what they are now, and it's just you can't, it's too much information. But
Yes.
then we are told that we have to live up to the standard, we have to be this certain way. If we don't be this way, we're going to fail, we're going to be fucking homeless, we're going to be lower end on society, and it's just like fuck.
Yeah, see,
And then we got COVID.
we're always looking outward
Yeah.
to live up to some fallacy of what life should be. I mean, ever since we're young, we're told that you're going to grow up, you're going to go to school, you're going to get a wife, you're going to get a house, you're going to have kids, and then you're going to have grandkids, and then you're going to die. And that's life is not that linear. And a lot of people are instilled with these beliefs. And if they cannot live up to those beliefs, they feel like a failure. And I know that seems like a very, I guess, rudimentary way to explain it, but just kind of think about how we're instilled with all these ideologies as a kid. And let's face it, most of that stuff is going to come true. Life is a fucking mess. Life is a turbulent, messy thing that is so difficult to comprehend, and it's so vastly different from individual to individual.
I also want to go back like even further in time. Like we went from fucking survival mentality. Like if you did not pull your weight, you would die. If you had anything wrong with you, you would die. If you couldn't be part of the group, you are going to die. Like
a woman who knew math,
we
you're
had
gonna die.
we had to reproduce, keep our traits going. Like it's just everything that got us to where we are now, like in the past I would say 700 years, 800 years, is no longer relevant.
Well, we've become too domesticated.
Yes, we no longer have to scavenge for food because people do it for us. Machines do it for us. And it's just, I don't think, and it kind of goes along the lines of like, we can't keep up with how things are changing. And our brains are still in this state of like, I need to survive.
Scarcity.
I need like to help the tribe. I need purpose. And then we're like, for myself, I sit down. I play video games, and I got to the point where I was just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like I go to work in a place I fucking hate, working with people that I probably have nothing in common, like very little in common. I get along with them, but it's just like, most of these people I don't fucking care about. And it's just like, then I get back to my place, and it's like, oh yay, I get to play video games for 4 hours, go to bed, go do it all over again. For what fucking purpose? And like there was this part that switched on for me where it was just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Why am I doing it? I need to change or something's gonna fucking snap. Which is why I fucked off for 6 months. And now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to dip my toe back in if the people who I work with are still the same way and the company hasn't changed. Fuck them. I owe them nothing. They can go. Like, it's just like, I need to do this for me. Otherwise, I'm going to hit a point where I may feel like you might feel.
I never thought ever in my life I would go from working at EB Games and selling a video game to this man to then sitting on a couch, or I guess chairs, in a man's basement talking about killing myself with the same person.
How the turntables?
Like,
But
I was looking at you and I had that realization. I was like, I sold video games to this person years ago.
I bought
But
many video
that's
games.
why. That's why this is like this podcast kind of. It isn't just something we do for fun. It is, but at the same time, there is a more nuanced reasoning behind it because we are so sick
Yeah.
of the superficial online engagement where nobody is their legitimate fucking selves. No
Other
one,
than me.
everybody,
The mundane lifestyles.
the mundane lifestyle. Everybody's trying to be someone who they're not, and they're trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations, and we're wondering why we're in a fucking mental health crisis. Couple that with a pandemic where people are locked in themselves. Fuck. What's the word I'm
People
looking for?
hated the pandemic, and it was great for me.
Oh, I didn't
I
mind
lived by myself.
I
I
had,
worked from home for a period of time. I played World of Warcraft while I was working. I would watch movies that I had never seen before.
Right.
I would wander around my apartment talking to my cats.
Yes.
It was fucking
Yes,
great.
because you took that opportunity that is innately negative and you turned it into something more positive. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to get at. But if you look at in the terms of the pandemic in general, is we look at solitary confinement as I think it might be against the Geneva Conventions. If it's not against the Geneva Conventions, a lot of countries frown upon solitary confinement. But here we are, where our own government did that to its citizens for 2 years. We were basically locked away, and you wonder why kids are fucked. A lot of them miss that imperative time in their life, that fundamental part in their life where they grow to be a person and they learn to interact with people. We haven't even seen the full extent of the COVID pandemic on mental health.
To be
yet.
fair, it wouldn't have been so long if people weren't absolutely stupid. Like, if people had done the minimum of what was asked for them, we never would have been in isolation for so long.
Oh, geez.
And again,
that's a whole
this,
other
yeah,
conversation.
this is like
but
we're getting back into like you're taking like a very complex topic and you're
So
oversimplifying
your
it.
next question.
Yes. So let's move on to the next question. So only 3 in 10 Canadians support the decision by our government to implement it for mental health. So the vast majority of people are against this.
Now, are they against it or do they just sit idle? Because like for myself, I probably haven't voted on anything like that.
I guess these are the people that they've polled.
Yeah.
So most people are
Yeah, but
against
when you say it without thinking about it, like if you were to like just ask somebody in a poll, you're not giving them time to look into it. You're not giving them time to really think about it. They have to give you an answer right then and there.
That is a good response.
I think a lot of those people, given the time to look into it, given the time to research and think more about it.
Almost no one does that. I mean,
I think some people would change their answer.
And that's
you're right.
That's the big problem, is that a lot of people can't be fucked.
He just agreed with me, which means now he agrees with me on everything, and therefore this whole debate is over.
I agree on the fact that if more people were to be educated on the topic, there probably would be more people that change their opinion on it. Like, you make a pretty damn good convincing argument.
I'm really good at making myself sound convincing, even if I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about.
So, moving into the next thing, which is a huge point of contention in the media, which a lot of people are arguing, is some people view this as eugenics. See, the expanding of the aperture for those eligible for MAID to include those with mental illness is being viewed as some form of eugenics, a surreptitious way for Canada to eradicate those in a mentally precarious state instead of investing in the research and infrastructure to ameliorate their mental maladies, an infrastructure that Canada is desperate need of reforming. See, if I view this through a more insidious lens, I'd say Canada is actively grooming the poor and those most in need to cull themselves. The current climate of Canada is actively manufacturing those that this program is aimed at.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Now,
I do want to add into this. This is strictly me looking at this topic through the most nihilistic lens
it sounds
possible.
It sounds like a Bush did 9/11.
now,
That's something I do want to add, because there's no proof to this. What I'm saying, this is just something that I'm like,
well,
it seems like a lot of things are there, and I'm kind of putting the puzzle pieces into this.
I can understand where you're coming from, because like if we look at just how,
Can you hold that thought just for a quick second?
holding.
Okay, so going back to what I said, I did type up this little blurb for that because that's a thought that I didn't want to forget. But me saying that this is eugenics, this isn't just me saying that. This is an actual point brought up in the media that they are doing, that this is a form of eugenics. I'm just kind of adding on to it with my own, I guess, conjecture.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Again, going back, like when you say eugenics, like define eugenics, just from your.
Well, eugenics is basically a way to systematically remove a undesirable
trait.
I'm trying to
pick
my
it's
words
an undesirable
carefully.
trait.
It is
not just trait, but it could be like
trait in the
homeless
broad term.
people,
Yeah.
drug addicts.
You're talking about battle of the resources. One species dominates other species. Basically, we're talking if the Nazis won, that would have been eugenics. Like they would have purged the world.
Because they got like they had their Lebens. I think they were called the Lebensborn.
Yeah.
Where they would basically find women who they perceived as perfect and
Yes.
breed them with a perceived perfect male to then make the perfect breed and then wean out the less desirables.
Now, from just an objective view on just the world and society and civilization, we will never escape eugenics, or like that thought, or the mentality of like superiority.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be people who will want to conquer everyone else.
Always.
And until we get rid of like national borders, like borders alone, like are an indication that, okay, we are not past the point of domination. Because what's the point of a country? It is to be the dominant country, is to take over the world. That's why the Romans fucking conquered like majority of Europe and started working in Asia.
Same thing.
That's
with
why
Britain.
Mongols, Britain,
fucking colonialists.
yeah, but that is eugenics. Like you are taking a group of people who are like-minded, and you are eliminating the opposition, or not the opposition, the competitors to the resources.
I don't know if I'd consider that eugenics. I perceive that more or less as like conquering or subjugating.
No, but you're getting rid of a lesser
I don't
civilization.
think you're getting rid of them. I think you're just integrating them into the society that you want them to be part of. You're still keeping those people. You're just integrating them into a culture.
Well,
of your choice.
from conquering perspective, yes. But what I'm getting at is that every living thing is in a constant competition of resource management or resource gain. And if you look at, like, I'll use China as an example. They've got a social credit score, meaning the lower end, like people who aren't pro-government, or people who talk ill of like specific people or do certain things that are frowned upon, they are going to be treated so shit in society. And I wouldn't be surprised if these people get sent to work camps and probably
like the
die.
Uyghurs.
You keep touching the cord and I can hear it.
Oh shit, sorry.
Mike, stop playing with your cord.
Michael!
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually happening in the background at a very slow rate. Like it would be basically the rich and the powerful controlling the poor population and just seeing what happens. But at the same time, to counter that, we are getting to a point in like 20, 30, 40 years, the working force is going to be fucking abysmal because the birth rate's going down.
Oh, and then not to mention our education system is weaning out
Yeah,
people with a
so-
more visual style of learning.
So these people that are in power right now that we think of as like the Black Mirror puppeteers, they are going to die in the next 50 years. They will not be around. And the problem is there will be no one to fucking replace. Like the people who replace them.
We're not going to have the people to.
Yeah, they're like everything's going to fucking crash and burn. If we get rid of the poor population or the lesser people, if we want to call it, like, it's just you need everyone to work together. Otherwise, everything falls apart. So it's like if you kill off the poor population, even the homeless population, like you're fucking over your own society.
And that's one thing humans have never excelled at. But I do have some points to back up my conspiracy theory, not to get all Alex Jones on people, but here's my first point. Increase in drug addiction. So Canada has a huge problem with drug addictions, even with these safe injection sites, which people just hang out in front of and sell fucking drugs. So it's not like it's working anyway. According to a recent study published in the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry and co-authored by Dr. Bach, the rate of amphetamine-related emergency department visits in Ontario increased nearly 15-fold between 2003 and 2020. In a cross-sectional study in which investigators analyzed public health data for the years 2013 to 2021, opioid-related deaths among youths in Ontario increased by almost 370%. So, that kind of, I put that there to kind of show what I mean when I say that there is a allowing people with drug addiction into MAID. It just seems like another way to weed out people with drug addiction, like especially if you view it in a more negative way, which is what I'm doing with this point. Mike, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck? I'm so upset. I'm distracted. I'm out of my zone. It's gone. But yeah, it seems like this is a way to wean out the less desirables from society, because Canada is recognizing that they have a problem with mental health, drug addiction, and, well, if we can't solve the problem, let's just let them kill themselves in a legally optimized way. The next point that I have is depression related to lockdown, income, and housing. So these are all things which is contributing to people's mental health lately. Or, sorry, their negative mental health. So here, this is where I start to get into more discussion about like how Canada is actively grooming people to this sort of service, and how they're creating their own problem and then trying to solve it through something like MAID. At least if you view it through, like what Melanie says, this more conspiracy lens. The lockdown, according to The Who, no, not the band, COVID-19 pandemic triggers 25% increase in prevalence of anxiety and depression worldwide, of which affected women and youths the most. Personally, I believe that this number is actually higher, especially like empirically working at a hospital and seeing people who are suffering mentally. That number is definitely a lot higher than what it's showing here. We're paying more but bringing in less. People are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, which also is leading to a proliferation of mental illness, because people have less and less time for themselves, and the money that they're bringing in working multiple jobs is not contributing to much because the government takes so much in taxes anyway, and our dollar is buying less than it ever has. So that's also contributing to a epidemic of mental health. More and more people are destitute due to Canada's abysmal state of housing. According to an article from CBC, a new method for counting homeless people is offering a clearer look at the magnitude of the social issue, with preliminary results indicating the country's homeless population could be 3 times higher than current estimates. Traditional methods of determining the number of homeless people have relied on counting people accessing services like shelters or food banks. Cheryl Forshuk, a researcher with Lawson Hill Research Institute, said in a recent interview, other methods, she said, involve frontline workers keeping spreadsheets or notebooks with lists of homeless people, but the data is not always included in national databases, she said. Not everybody is found who is instituted is afflicted with Western University. Oh, sorry, I missed a part here. Nobody is found, said Forchuk, who is affiliated with Western University. A lot of people experiencing homelessness do not choose to access shelters, or there isn't capacity for them. Canada's national database estimates that there are approximately 235,000 homeless people across the country, but that number triples when emergency room healthcare data is considered, Forchuk said. Healthcare data, while not perfect, can be a reliable marker because homeless people are very, very vulnerable from a health perspective. She said, adding that they are between 4 and 10 times more likely than average to visit an emergency room. So I know that's a lot to take in, but that further contributes to the fact that this is a huge issue right now with housing, homelessness, drug addiction. All these things are contributing to a mental health epidemic, and this is a very systemic issue that is going to require a hell of a lot of reform in multiple facets of our government to ameliorate, all of which our government is not doing at all. In fact, they're failing on every conceivable fucking level. All these people is creating this pressure cooker of mental illness, and you're going to have so many of these people, as I've stated earlier from CTV News, who are going to try to obtain the services of MAID to facilitate their death because our government has fucking failed them in every conceivable way.
I think you can look at this in 2 extremes and then everything in between. But the 2 extremes would be what you've said about your conspiracy theory, which is what I'm just gonna call it now. That they're doing this to cull the population, to get rid of the undesirables. The other extreme that you would see it in is this is to help those people have options because everything is going to shit.
So they're too inept to fix the issue, so we should just let people kill themselves because they're depressed.
So the way that I saw it as the 2 extremes was, so the other way would be you're giving people resources, and if those resources aren't working for them, they can still pursue what they wanted. But, like, even then, thinking about this in the way of, like, your life sucks, kill yourself. If you think about it in terms of, like, another country, let's say you live in an impoverished country, you can't eat because you can't get a job. Like, you're living in absolute poverty, you're living in a slum, and you just don't want to live that way. And then you kill yourself because you don't want to live that way. And what if you don't have a way out? What if there is nothing for you? Like, I'm looking at this in terms of, like, you're an impoverished citizen in, like, a third world country.
I'm an impoverished citizen in a first world country.
And so you kill yourself, right? And, like, is that avoidable? Yeah. You could give that person a better life and they probably wouldn't feel that way. But ultimately, it's gonna happen to some people, and some people are gonna feel like that's their only way out, even with resources.
What's your take, Mike?
Well, I kind of going along conspiracy route. Like,
You're still moving your cord.
Oh,
and
am
I can still
I'm
still
sorry.
hear it.
I'm sorry. So, in history,
I can still hear the cord when you
are you serious? What the fuck? Okay, there.
The mic is
there.
really sensitive.
I think it's
No, it was actually your pants.
Oh, is it?
It was
Oh,
the sound of it
Take your
rubbing
pants
against
off.
your
I'm
pants.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'll take my pants off. Okay, so I could have misunderstood this. There's like a video essay that I watched a while ago, and probably actually a few video essays I watched a while ago, and they talked about how we are kind of past. We've hit a point in time where we're gonna fuck how to let me start over. Civilizations go through a phase, like there's a startup phase where they're prosperous, it levels out, plummets, and then war. Prosperous, golden age, level out, plummet, and like looking back at certain uh, empires, governments, nations, you see that there are trends that occur where, and we'll go back to like the First World War, and I could be butchering this, maybe I misunderstood, but to my understanding, it went from catastrophic, like poverty slash disease, like a very low point, into a global conflict. The winners and even the losers prospered. Everyone basically prospered economically. Like
Wars always do.
yes, they boosted the resources, everything advanced. They hit a plateau where everyone was okay, and then things started leveling off, kind of going down. Boom, you get another catastrophic event, like societal event. Boom, you hit a depression, economy's shit. What do? You start another war. And I feel like that's just happening. Like, that is, we are currently experiencing the pre moments before World War III.
But now we can't have a war because if a war starts, it's going to go nuclear. So it's going to be like these. It's going to be these proxy wars or cold wars. I think is probably where you're leaning towards.
I don't believe it's going to go nuclear. Now there might be a nuke dropped, or a few nukes dropped, but like, this is just me being conspiracy. Like, I may or may not actually believe this. I don't fucking know. Anyways, I think what's going to happen is we've hit that catastrophic point where, like, our society, like, we went through the pandemic. Now we're hitting, like, if I understood this video essay correctly, we are actually worse off economically than we were in the Great Depression. Like, shit's
I have heard that. Yes.
actually worth less now than they had back then when they were eating fucking onions.
The thing is
like,
is Canada has a preponderance of resources and things we could tap into, but we don't because reasons for some, like, it's just absolutely absurd to me. I mean, Canada has some of the most oil in the world. We have trillions of feet.
Fresh water.
Yeah, we have almost all the world's fresh water. We have trillions of feet of natural gas. We have, I think, the world's biggest supply of lithium, or one of the biggest world supplies of lithium.
Bering Strait? No, what's the fucking... Jesus, why am I derping on the fucking ocean? When the ice melts, there's going to be a fucking waterway for shipping and stuff like that. And like, that's a big global component in a big moving moment on why they think that eventually Canada is going to be a major player or a big target, because we are going to control the shortest route from, like, any country.
And Canada is not taking advantage of any of the resources that we have.
Yeah.
Because environment, even though that argument is moot, especially when you're talking about things like natural gas and lithium. I mean, these are two things that are nearly as bad for the environment as coal or oil, but let alone we're still doing nothing with it. Nova Scotia had the potential to operate an entire hydro facility for power that operated on waves it sat on his desk for years, and then they took it elsewhere because Trudeau was too busy styling his sexy fucking hair. But I know what I went through is, I want to reiterate, was just kind of my own conspiracy mixed with something people in the media were saying, because some people, like I said, in the media do view this as eugenics, and I just kind of added on my own conjecture on top of that. But any final notes you guys want to add before we sign off?
We will eventually find out.
Yes. The only way we can find out whether this is going to be successful and people are going to, I guess, applaud it. And I mean, the whole world's watching, and I guess Canada is at the front line of these types of services. And the countries that haven't legalized it and the countries that have legalized it are going to watch to see how Canada handles it in terms of mental illness. But who knows? Probably pretty soon, Futurama is going to be right. We're going to have suicide booths lining the streets. But who knows until we find out. But
if you take anything from this episode, I want you to take one thing away, and that is I'm smarter than Ryan. That's not actually what I wanted.
He's wrong.
That's not what
You're
I wanted
like
to say.
NASCAR.
If you take anything away from this, it's that you should look at everything from as many different perspectives as you can.
Yes.
And you should look into as many different options as you can, and make your decision based on as much information as you can get.
And if you are going through some sort of difficulties or you are suffering, reach out to somebody, coworkers, parents, if they're available, friends, anybody.
You could even reach out to me.
Even reach out to Melanie.
Yeah. I may want to kill myself, but I sure don't really want other people to
She
do it.
kills
could
herself.
Unless they really want to.
If you kill yourself, I will fucking kill you.
Would you suffice with a reach around?
All right, we got to end this right now. Right now. I got a semi going on. No, but yes, please reach out, find help, anything. But until then, just keep in mind that we are not professionals on any of this, but we would love to hear any opinions you guys might have on the matter, because there's so many different stances you could take on this. So if you do have an opinion or you do have a something you want to add, leave it in the comments if you sat through this whole long ramble, because it was definitely a very non-linear discussion, but I think that just kind of goes to show how complicated this topic can be.
Please only comment if you agree with me.
But thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Who is she gonna answer?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
I got a question.
What?
Does Dad work for the municipality picking up compost?
Compost?
Yeah, does he do that? Or is he just like, is he the cultivator of compost?
Well, he doesn't have a whole lot of cum to give out. Why?
Why did you take it all?
Backfired.
Yeah, I pumped it all out of him a long time ago.
Oh. Okay, well, I'm talking about MAID, which is a medically assisted suicide, and I think I might just sign up for it after this conversation.
You're the one that asked me if he used compost.
Well, you didn't have to be so vocative with your answer.
You've known me for 30 years?
Well, technically, I'd say for like 25, because for the first few years, you're not really... I mean, you're conscious, but your consciousness probably hasn't fully developed yet. It's kind of weird that I'm getting a boner right now. Is that weird?
Tad bit.
It'd be weird if you weren't.
Anyway, now that you brought that up, I gotta go see if I can pump any more out of it.
Oh my god! If something happens to you guys, I'm not calling an ambulance.
Why?
Because, one, I want your inheritance, and two, I don't feel like finding my parents in this fucking deranged Karma Sutra position.
Calling Waste Management.
I don't know what a Karma Sutra position is, but if it's like a 69 or whatever.
Ew. I bet at your age it just looks like a leathery stingray.
No.
Okay, well, enjoy being glazed by Dad, I guess.
Glazed. We're talking cream, not glaze.
Well, glaze works, especially if you don't clean it.
Well, he cleans it. He has a shower.
But you don't clean. So you're just full of cum crust?
Oh, no. I have a bath every night.
Okay, well, enjoy being cum embalmed.
I'm always ready.
Now he's got a heart.
Just don't ask, Mark. I'm just playing along with them.
She's causing me trauma that I can use for medically assisted suicide. Because it's also contributing to my alcoholism.
I thought I'd give you a little piece of something.
I don't want you to give me a piece of anything, you fucking rapist.
To talk to your therapist about.
I can't afford them anymore. My insurance topped out, so I have to wait until next year before I can see them again.
You just come down and talk to Mama.
That's why I need a therapist to begin with.
He thought he was going to see a therapist, but he went to see the rapist.
You don't happen to have me on speakerphone, do you?
Yeah, you're on speakerphone.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
By the way, this is also being recorded.
Oh, Jesus. I'm not going to be on your podcast, am I?
I don't know. That's debatable. I might, but I don't want your retardation to kind of seep through the airwaves and infect other people.
Yeah, okay. Now I have to behave myself because I know I'm on speakerphone.
Kind of like that movie Videodrome, where you'll just come out of the TV screen and just like fucking cause retardation across YouTube. There's like a retardation epidemic.
I did that when I had you. What are you talking about?
Had me. I just kind of found my way out.
Well, for you, it wasn't that hard.
It's like the game Labyrinthine. I had to walk around with glow sticks.
I'm gonna go.
You found the compost lid.
Hey, if it's in a butt, is it called bum post?
It's what?
In a butt, is it called bum post instead of cum post? Or is it still...
I'd say it's a butt plug. If you're plugging the butt up.
No, I meant if a man deposits his creamy effusion into an anus.
Just make
That's like a Boston cream donut.
All right,
like a chocolate milkshake.
Yes, like it's got the chocolate icing on the, and then it's got the cream on the. Then never mind.
Depends on how like vigorous it is. It could froth. It could just
fall out. Everything could just fall out.
This has been a very educational.
Now that your
5
father
minutes.
thinks that I'm just totally, and it's not like he ever did, think that I'm 100% disturbed because I am, but I think
He's done that for a while. Okay, well, this has been, like he said, very educational. We've learned a lot. We've shared a lot.
Okay.
I'm Mike, by the way.
Hi, Mike.
Nice to meet you.
Stop trying to fuck my friends, Mom.
Nice to meet you.
Goodbye, Ryan.
Bye.